Come along with me to see the tragic past of little Min-gyeol, crying in absolute despair, feeling completely abandoned by the world. But in his darkest hour, a little girl appeared with the most radiant, warm smile, gently asking him to walk home together. When that warm hand took his blood-stained one, Min-gyeol made a decision that would change everything. He stared up at her eyes filled with panic and pure disbelief. But she made a solemn promise never to leave him behind. That vow became his only light in an otherwise pitch-black world. Years flew by, and right at the gates of Palgok High, a familiar voice called out to Arin. She spun around in surprise, her eyes widening in total shock as she recognized the boy. It was Min-gyeol, the same fragile boy from back then, now grown into a tall high school student, practically beaming with excitement as he realized they would be sharing the exact same classroom. Arin stood there absolutely speechless while a bashful Min-gyeol pointed out they weren't just classmates, they were actually desk partners. She playfully teased him for keeping it a secret, but he nervously laughed, confessing he chose this school just to surprise her. Arin playfully nudged his arm, teasingly saying he looked incredibly handsome in his uniform. He instantly blushed deep red, stammering out a quiet thank you. Gathering his courage, Min-gyeol mumbled back that she looked absolutely stunning in her uniform too. Now pay attention, she covered her mouth jokingly, asking if he had finally fallen for her. The joke nearly gave him a heart attack, but before he could answer, Arin heard her friends calling her name. She giggled, waving off the tension as a joke, then waved goodbye and promised to catch up with him later. Left alone, Min-gyeol could feel his heart hammering furiously, his mind completely consumed by thoughts of Arin, his closest friend since elementary school. But deep down, she was so much more. She was his forever secret love. His smile faded as shadow-like memories flooded back, bringing him to a dark time when everyone looked down on him. A painful past where even his teachers' so-called friends and his own parents joined the hostile crowd in condemning him. Absolutely everyone turned their backs on him in his darkest hour. Not a single soul was on his side. In that crumbling world, Arin alone trusted and bravely defended him. Because of Arin's warmth, Min-gyeol survived those truly horrific days, watching her eventually become the beloved class president. He admired her from afar, seeing how she always enthusiastically helped others. And gradually, that admiration became love. You and I saw this coming, he vowed to confess before high school. Back to today. Arin turned around to say she was grabbing lunch with friends and invited Min-gyeol to join them. He hesitated, saying he only really knew her, which made Arin assume he would feel totally out of place. So she quickly withdrew the invite. Realizing his mistake, Min-gyeol panicked, knowing she was just being thoughtful. He tried calling her back, but it was already too late. Arin was already chatting with the other girls about eating tteokbokki and heading straight to karaoke afterward. He stood alone, painfully aware of his lack of friends and how claustrophobic he felt in any crowd over 5 people. Unlike him, Arin was the classroom star, a radiant, incredibly social butterfly adored by absolutely everyone. After school, while waiting for the bus, Arin was shocked to see a very familiar figure. She walked over to ask if he was taking this route, and he shyly nodded in confirmation. Turns out, because of her new tutoring sessions, Arin would be riding this bus on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. This news secretly thrilled Min-gyeol. Once on board, she hesitated, clearly wanting to ask him something. She curiously asked about his study habits, an unexpected question that caught Min-gyeol completely off guard. He confessed that he only did his homework and tried his absolute best not to doze off during lectures. Hearing that, she sighed, complaining that success was all about natural talent, though Min-gyul immediately disagreed. But Arin just looked up, and with eyes full of heavy emotion, she muttered a soft sigh, falling silent. Min-gyul was left stunned when she confessed her dream of going to a top university in Seoul. So stick with me as we find out if they can make it to the big city together. Let's dive into the beginning of this story, where our main character hears Aaron's clear plan for his future. Suddenly, Aaron looked at him with absolute confidence, promising that Minjiel would easily get into a school in Seoul. That unexpected support caught him off guard, and he muttered that he had never even considered doing that. Unable to hold back, Minjol confessed his deepest wish: he wanted to go wherever she went. Those words left Aaron stunned, while Mingyil waved his hands in sheer panic, cursing himself under his breath for talking too much like an idiot. To his surprise, Aaron burst into bright laughter, excitedly saying it would be amazing, and they should work together for that goal. That response melted Minjel's heart, filling him with joy as he silently promised himself he would make it happen. From that day on, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday afternoons became special because they shared the same bus ride home. On the bus, Erin sighed over her stubborn homework, but with a tiny hint from Mingyil, she squealed and thanked him endlessly. Quickly changing the subject, she excitedly showed him a photo of a handsome actor praising his beautiful, charming smile. Meanwhile, Mingyil innocently pointed out that the guy was from an adult movie, totally obsessed with that same smile. Watch closely here, because Miel tried using hair wax in secret, only for the mirror to reveal a total disaster. And the next day, Aaron bluntly asked if he left home without washing his hair, freezing Miel completely. Dying of embarrassment, he threw the wax right in the trash, thinking that looking like such a mess, he could never bring himself to confess his feelings to Aaron. Hiding his face in his hands on his desk, Minjol felt an overwhelming urge to change himself. To be exact, he did not just want to change, he wanted to become someone as bright as Erin herself. As time passed, a friend noticed that Minjol had been smiling a whole lot lately. It was Erin who curiously asked him if his smile looked weird, but Minjiel just gave a confident grin. And then with blushing cheeks, Erin suddenly confessed that Mingyil looked genuinely beautiful whenever he smiled. Erin smiled warmly at him, encouraging Miel to keep wearing that bright, happy expression from now on. That night in bed, Mingyil tossed and turned over, thinking the meaning behind a compliment she had never given him before. Regardless of the real intention behind her words, Erin's sweet praise made Mingyil smile with pure, unadulterated happiness. But that sweet moment was ruined. Look at this, Erin suddenly decided to sit far away on their usual bus ride. Mingyil was left completely speechless. Not understanding his friend at all, he anxiously approached to ask if something was wrong since she was sitting alone. Erin quietly denied it, but her avoiding his gaze made it obvious that something was definitely wrong. She blocked her blushing face with her backpack, mumbling that she just needed some quiet space to think alone. Seeing this bizarre behavior, Minja broke into a cold sweat, immediately sensing the absolute worst, screaming on the inside that everything was totally ruined. Minjal walked home heartbroken and full of regret, fearing his eagerness had annoyed Erin, his eyes visibly puffy as he stepped inside. He quickly brushed off his mother's concern when she directly asked if he had been crying. The mood turned incredibly tense when his mother asked him to sit down for a major family announcement. The shocking truth hit him like a heavy sentence, leaving Minjiel shattered, because the most painful goodbyes always catch you when you least expect them. Under the quiet night sky, Erin could not believe her ears. Minjiel was moving far away to Seoul. With a tight lump in his throat, he explained that due to his dad's job, he had no choice but to leave, meaning his school years would now be spent at some completely foreign high school in the busy capital city. Erin lowered her head in sadness, silently hoping that they could at least see each other once in a while, but realizing with bitterness that the long distance would complicate everything. Minja's heart sank as he cursed fate for tearing them apart just as things were getting good. Lost in that sorrow, Aaron's hand gently brushed against his for comfort, marking a bittersweet end to his very first romantic feelings. And Mingyil froze at his friend's unexpected touch, feeling one final beat inside his breaking heart. And that is where we leave things, with Aaron asking him to call once he moves. Come with me to see how a tiny glimmer of hope shone in Minjiel's eyes when Aaron promised they would meet again in Seoul if they both got in. But then, harsh reality struck in 8th grade when Minjiel officially had to leave Aaron behind and move away to the capital city. Years later, amidst the bustle of the big city, he still felt incredibly lonely, missing their old times together like crazy. He could only send short texts to check on her constantly, telling himself to work hard and become someone worthy of her. Someone amazing and bright, just like his beloved Aaron. As the cold snow fell, he quietly remembered that big promise from years ago. Books and stressful exams completely consumed Minjae's life during his brutal journey to improve himself. Eventually, he made new friends and smiled again, secretly wondering if he finally had the courage to confess his feelings. But fate was cruel during his first year of high school, when Aaron suddenly cut off all contact and completely vanished. And so Mingyil's journey back to his hometown began in his final year, passing through a tunnel flooded with light. He lost his breath when he saw that the old bus stop sign from years ago was still standing right there. Mingyil just stared in absolute silence, realizing that this stop looked exactly the same as he remembered it from his childhood. It felt as if time had frozen there completely untouched, sending a flood of overwhelming emotions straight to his chest. Suddenly he spotted an elderly lady struggling to pull a heavy cart piled high with goods. Showing his natural kindness, Mingyil approached her with a warm smile and eagerly offered to help the sweet lady. In the spring of his senior year, his family left the bright lights of Seoul to return where it all started. Standing before his new class at Sangak High School, he introduced himself, explaining he used to live here before moving. He flashed his brightest smile, saying he really wanted to make friends and have an amazing final year with everyone. The classroom erupted in applause, followed by whispers about his good looks and curious questions about his past life. Mingyil mentioned he transferred from a prestigious school, sparking more chatter until the teacher called the class to order. As he walked to his seat, he smiled at the teacher, claiming his eyesight was perfect even from the back. But as he sat down, his heart sank when he realized Aaron was nowhere to be seen. He painfully recalled that Aaron wanted another school, but ended up with no choice but Sangak due to limited spots. Despite his deep disappointment, he forced a smile, telling his classmates he had spent the last 5 years living in downtown Seoul. One of them bluntly asked him why on earth he had decided to leave the capital. Watch closely here, the mood gets incredibly tense until someone cuts in. He just says it is fine, explaining it was all due to family issues. He immediately remembered the painful moment his father's business went bankrupt, forcing them to shut down in total despair and bitterness. Even though his parents begged him to stay in Seoul alone so he could finish at his great school, he completely refused and chose to return to his town because deep down, she was the only reason to leave everything behind. Minyel had just one single goal in mind when returning home to find his beloved Aaron once again. Clutching the basketball tightly, he shyly asked his classmates if they knew a girl who used to attend this school. But his question was only met with an awkward silence and shocked looks from his classmates. I know what you are thinking. Everyone started whispering awful things about Erin, revealing she was indeed at the school but was a notoriously troubled girl everyone knew about. Minyel felt highly uneasy with their attitude, wondering why they reacted so coldly just hearing her name. The first massive shock came when a classmate revealed that she had actually transferred to Sangak in her second year and was still there. He got super excited and wanted to go look for her right away. But the warning that seeing her now would be nearly impossible stopped him dead in his tracks. Confused, he asked why, only to hear rumors about her drastic change in attitude and the deep darkness surrounding her. The heartbreaking reality came to light when his friend confirmed that Aaron was on the verge of dropping out. Trust me. His eyes widened in shock. Get ready because you and I are about to see how the girl who was his entire world completely hit rock bottom. Aaron skipped class without permission. Mingyil froze right there at the bus stop, completely unable to process what he had just heard. The rumors spread fast. Classmates whispered that she caused a massive incident at her old school, forcing her to transfer. It hurt to remember the old Erin, the one who shined so brightly, while sharing her dream of getting into a Seoul university. Everything seemed completely out of control. But deep down, Mingyil refused to believe those nasty rumors. He wondered if that was why she cut contact. Then a loud crash echoed behind him. Mingyil spun around in fear, cautiously following that bizarre noise coming from a hidden alleyway just down the street. There he witnessed a brutal scene. Someone was furiously stomping on a school bag and shredding homework notebooks to pieces. Turning pale, he hid behind a lamppost, silently watching the lonely back of a girl trembling with absolute rage. Look closely with me at this girl standing in her own war zone, radiating a terrifying and absolute sense of despair. Seeing this shocking change in his old friend Mingyel, stood frozen, wondering if Erin had genuinely lost her mind. Mingyel terrified. They would make eye contact, figured it was best to act clueless, pretend he saw nothing, and walk away. But his face showed total shock as he realized he simply couldn't turn his back on his old friend at her absolute worst. Making a split-second decision, Minyel reached out his hand, firmly grabbing the wrist of the girl who was completely losing control. He used all his strength to stop. Mingyil, trembling, whispered Ju Aaron's name in pure disbelief, unable to tear his eyes away from her worn and broken figure. Watch closely right here. He stares at the textbook lying on the ground with Sangak High School written on it. From 12th grade, painfully confirming she was the exact model student he had desperately wanted to be like in the past. The very role model who inspired him to work so hard to change his entire life over all these years. He completely froze, remembering the old Erin, sweet as an angel, a girl who was always the center of attention, surrounded by admiring friends. But now, standing in front of him, was just a broken soul, crying uncontrollably, without a single trace of her former bright energy. Mingyil stood frozen in the middle of the field, asking himself with deep pain, what kind of tragedy had shattered such a wonderful girl? I know this hurts to watch. Our main character is completely shattered by this unbelievably cruel reality right in front of him, silently wondering what terrible disaster had fallen upon the very girl he was deeply in love with. He tightly grabbed Erin's arm, watching in agonizing pain as tears streamed down her face, which was filled with bitterness and resentment. During this breakdown, sweet memories of a past night rushed into his mind when Erin had happily praised his amazing exam grades. Over the phone, Minjiel had shyly replied that no matter how hard he worked, he could never reach her top spot at that prestigious school. Erin thanked him so sweetly back then, insisting that Mingyel's constant support was her biggest motivation to achieve that goal. Hearing her sincere words, he tenderly recalled that she had actually been the one secretly working the hardest of all. Come along with me to see how Erin gently told him that having a study partner made her feel incredibly lucky. Her gentle words completely lit up his dark room, filling Minjiel with massive hope and determination for the future. She teased him that judging by his photos, he looked way taller, and then jokingly worried she might not even recognize him when they finally met. Their call ended with a promise to enter university together, swearing to stay by each other's side forever. Miniel smiled with pure, raw happiness, listening to the sweet and genuine words of the girl he adored. And trust me, you and I will never forget her whispering how much she wanted to see him soon, making that night unforgettable. Let's dive in. As intense emotions make Minjiel jump out of bed, his face completely flushed red, his heart pounded with uncontrollable happiness. They talked for over an hour, but when he softly called her name again, he only met a strange silence and the soft, steady sound of gentle breathing on the other end. Miniel secretly figured that maybe Erin was just exhausted and had drifted off to sleep. And indeed, she was fast asleep with her phone still active and resting right next to her pillow. Now pay attention here, because even though he wanted to keep listening to her gentle breathing, let's jump into how Minjiel convinces himself that hanging up is for the best, clutching those texts on his screen, promising a life-changing reunion. He hid under the covers, unable to stop grinning as he imagined that bright future they had planned together. But under the silent night sky, he never imagined that call would be the last time he heard her voice. Just like that summer vacation ended, and those daily goodnight texts were swallowed by an absolute crushing silence, leaving Minjiel in pure agony. Stepping out of the shower, he checks his phone, wondering if she is just busy with her new life. He tried to calm down while studying, hoping Erin would reply very soon. Maybe she was just busy for a few days. But a week passed, then a month of silence and fear began consuming his mind. Under the freezing night sky in the schoolyard, he called her over and over, but only met the ringing tone of a desperate silence. Miniel searched through the old school yearbook, realizing with sheer despair that Erin had no social media accounts he could track. He clutched his head in agony, realizing that Erin was his only true friend, and now he had nobody left to turn to for answers. Bitter winter arrived, draping the tree branches in heavy snow. Yet his faith that she would call never died. Even surrounded by new friends under the cherry blossoms next year. Pay attention here, because Minjiel is torturing himself, wondering if some mistake of his pushed her away. Tossing and turning in bed while staring out the window into the dark. He just wanted an explanation for the sudden departure of the girl his heart missed so deeply. Miniel remained awake in the shadows, feeling that the beautiful future he wanted had vanished in the blink of an eye. He stared blankly at his phone screen, where her final message still glowed, promising they would meet again soon. His lost gaze showed deep anxiety, secretly doubting if fate would ever grant them a chance to reunite. If that day ever came, Minjiel wondered what words could possibly break the massive ice between them. And suddenly he freezes before a figure he just found. A lump forms in his throat, and his planned words completely vanish. His heart beats at 1,000,000 miles an hour, staring at the harsh reality right in front of him. Minyel recognized her instantly, but his soul shattered seeing that the radiant Erin was now a sad, faded shadow. Her messy hair and that hyper-alert look of fear left him completely bewildered and utterly heartbroken. Even though the shadows hid her face and the change was incredibly drastic, deep down in his soul, he knew perfectly well this was Jew Erin. And after 5 long years of separation and pain, look, where we finally find her in the least expected place. Minyel grabbed her hand tightly, trembling all over, not knowing how to break the ice after so much time. Erin yanked her hand away in terror, leaving Minjiel frozen solid by her aggressive reaction. She shot him a cold, strange glare, demanding to know what on earth he thought he was doing. Minjiel scratched his neck in embarrassment, stammering an apology for his impulsive behavior while his mind raced. 1,000 questions filled his head about her escape, the rumors of her expulsion, and this terrible transformation. In the middle of that desolate ground, he gathered all his courage to speak his own name, hoping she still remembered Minjiel. He pointed to himself with a forced smile, sincerely asking if she remembered her childhood best friend. But his hope crashed against a hollow stare, as if Erin had completely erased his existence from her memory. Suddenly, her eyes trembled, and a spark of shock flashed as that name touched a deep corner of her memories. But Erin lowered her head, gripping her clothes with trembling hands, as if trying to endure a revived, unbearable pain. Erin shoved him aside and bolted in desperation, leaving Minjiel completely frozen, unable to react in time. He reached out his arm in panic, screaming his old friend's name in despair, begging her to stop. But in her frantic sprint, she tripped and fell heavily to the ground, sending all the books from her backpack flying everywhere. Seeing this, Minjiel frantically searched his backpack for some bandages, desperately asking if she was all right. And that's where we leave things today. Will he save her? Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The little girl curled up on the floor, bleeding from her knee, her defensive, fearful eyes warning him to stay away. Get ready, because that freezing rejection hit Mingiel like ice water, leaving him completely frozen on the spot. His hands still inside his bag, his eyes darkened with pain, realizing that Erin's high walls were now an impossible chasm to cross. Heartbroken, the young man silently turned and walked away, helpless, feeling like this crushing pain was truly unbearable. A heavy lump choked Mingiel as he realized that even though Erin was the one who fell to the ground, he was the one suffering and bleeding on the inside. Holding the high school yearbook in his hands, Mingiel's gaze locked onto Erin's radiant and beautiful smile, the girl he had searched for so desperately. Checking the class list for room 31, he was shocked to find that this familiar face had actually been at his school the whole time. The harsh reality hits Minjiol as we watch him piece together this painful puzzle, bitterly discovering that the exact day of her transfer to Songgak matched the day she cut off all contact with him. Unable to contain the burning curiosity rushing through his veins, he approached some classmates to ask what on earth happened to Jew Erin back then. Seeing his incredibly tense face, One of them simply shrugged, saying that ever since she first arrived at the school, her behavior was always incredibly strange, which deeply startled Miel. He urgently pressed for details, and his classmate scratched his chin as he tried to remember, mentioning that back then she would still answer if spoken to and even hung out with a few friends. But trust me, the real mystery deepens when he adds she almost never spoke or initiated a single conversation. In his mind, you and I can easily picture Erin huddled in the corner of her desk, isolated from the noise, totally resigned to letting the outside world pass her by. His classmate clicked his tongue, hesitantly tapping the desk as he searched for the right words to describe the girl's cold, protective shell. He ended with a chilling phrase saying that Erin seemed completely empty on the inside, which froze Minjiel as the painful thought of his beloved sinking into total loneliness pierced straight through his chest. Over time, she became a ghost at school since absolutely nobody cared enough to even speak to her. Minjiel was far too stunned to believe it, demanding real answers about that terrible incident at UC College that had forced her to transfer with such bitterness. Pay attention here because he only received warnings about dark rumors that absolutely nobody dared to mention out loud. Just as the truth was about to come out, a hand suddenly covered the boy's mouth, cutting off his story instantly. The group of friends looked at Minjiel with deep suspicion, wondering how close his relationship really was with such a targeted girl. Amidst this tense atmosphere, Mingyel completely froze. Suddenly, his mind drifted back to the past. Erin's radiant figure and warm smile returned like a beautiful movie contrasting sharply with today's heartbreaking reality. He nodded gently, his eyes filled with nostalgia as he admitted the undeniable bond that connected them. Minyel bitterly confessed that during his lonely middle school years, Erin was his only true friend in his entire life's light. Even though they advised him to turn a deaf ear to the baseless gossip, fear over whatever secret Erin was hiding began to deeply torment Mingyel's soul. Mince panicked for almost speaking too much, admitting he always thought the bond between Minjol and that girl was completely insignificant. He even believed that Mingyel only felt pity when he agreed to be friends with an outcast like Erin. I know what you're thinking, Ninjal's heart completely shattered, imagining how much abuse Erin had to endure behind her back. Holding back his rising frustration, he quietly asked if Erin still showed up to class every single day. Kano explains that Erin only shows up to counseling to sign in before vanishing mysteriously. Stick with me, this gets wild. Another classmate nods in heavy silence, adding even more raw tension to the already suffocating and heavy conversation. Suddenly, Sean Ho remembers that Gina from the other class transferred from Palak. Maybe she knows what went down at UC High. He tells Minjol to go find her right away since she definitely knows everything about Erin's hidden past. Mining stands there repeating Gina's name, feeling a tiny spark of genuine hope finally ignite deep inside his chest. He offers a quick smile and leaves, walking right past the whispering girls as the storm begins to brew. Let's dive into the story of Gina, who swears she and Minjiel were never close. But that quick sip of water completely betrays the nervous tension eating her alive. Her friends aren't buying it, teasing her mercilessly, dying to know about the handsome new guy. As they tease her about her past crush, she gets incredibly flustered and avoids eye contact. Red as a tomato, she raises her voice trying to deny her past. But the endless giggles show that Minjiel's name is still a very open wound. Suddenly, a classmate walks in, announcing that Minjiel is waiting outside to speak with her urgently. Gina completely freezes up, while her excited friends eagerly shove her out into the hallway, telling her to finally take this chance and face her true feelings head on. She walks down the hall tormented, regretting her past words, and fearing their years apart will ruin this reunion. Standing face to face in the empty stairwell, Minjiel asks to talk seriously, and she nods, heart pounding. But before he can speak, Gina lets out a forced laugh, summoning the courage to ask the heavy question that has weighed on her soul for years. With a lump in her throat, she asks if he remembers her leaving Minjiel, completely baffled. Disappointed, she presses him, but he can only stammer that they went to middle school together. Seeing his blank expression, she bitterly realizes he has no memory of their shared childhood. Minjiel's eyes widen as pieces of the past slowly return to him, realizing that they actually did know each other back in elementary school. He apologizes for his terrible memory, while she smiles, secretly relieved he forgot, recalling how they barely spoke back then. After all, back in those days, Minjiel never left Erin's side for even a second. Hearing her name, Minjiel's gaze softens, admitting just how much he adored his old friend. Now watch closely, because the air completely freezes as Minjiel reveals he ran into Erin yesterday. Gina goes pale, her eyes widening in pure horror as if hearing the absolute worst news. She immediately demands that he tell her every single detail, and Minjiel worriedly confesses that Erin seemed like a completely different person. That once radiant girl now looked like a broken, empty soul. Gina stares at him, wondering what kind of nightmare happened to her friend, hesitating before she reveals the dark truth about everything. She wonders if he will even believe her once he learns that Erin is actually a criminal. This shocking revelation leaves Minjiel completely stunned, shattering the angelic image he always had of her. Gina looks away quietly, asking Minjiel to try and remember what Erin was truly like. With cold detachment, she repeats the name, Jew Erin, demanding to know how well he really knew her, while a trembling Minjiel stammers, asking if she even understood her. Well, I know it sounds crazy, but Gina admits that even after years together, Erin remained an unsolved mystery to everyone. A chilling doubt creeps into Minjiel's mind, making him question their entire past from elementary school until now. He realizes he never once heard her talk about her family, her fears, or her childhood. Not once. The air grows heavy as Gina crosses her arms, revealing another dark secret to a visibly sweating Minjiel. Her cryptic words leave Minjiel completely breathless, desperately demanding to know what happened while she stares back at him with an icy, calm expression. With a dark gaze, she whispers that she does not know the exact details of what happened. But the tragedy started during their freshman year of high school, when a student at Yak Academy took their own life, forcing the police to cordon off the entire area immediately to investigate. A cruel twist strikes Minjiel when he learns that Erin was actually there at that exact moment. Yet she chose to stay completely silent and failed to report anything right away. And that's where we leave things today, watching Erin refuse to speak under the flashing red police lights. Let's dive into a town claiming a student chose his own end. The case closed, but collective whispers became an invisible, inescapable sentence, forcing Erin to abandon her studies and giving up on her dream university. Hearing that brutal truth made Minjiel's pupils shrink in absolute terror, stammering in panic as his gut screamed that this horror story was real. Meanwhile, Gina's cold confirmation echoed down the empty staircase. The bloody scene and cold corpse of that high school student shocked the entire town, ending a young life far too soon. and Erin just stood there, her face and clothes completely drenched in blood, wearing an expression so vacant it convinced everyone she had actually murdered her own classmate. Minyel was too stunned to speak. His mind shattered as he faced this brutal reality about the girl he always loved. Harsh accusations echoed in his head, twisting Erin's bright image into the haunting shadow of a cold killer. But even as hope faded, Minjiel gritted his teeth, insisting the angel of his heart could never be a cold-blooded killer. Now watch closely as Gina asks if he'd keep that blind faith, knowing the dark truth of what actually happened that year. Sitting through his classes, Minyel quietly realized Gina only dared to tell him because she knew he would never accept such a horrible truth. He stared anxiously out the window, wondering if even someone as close as Gina believed Erin was guilty. Determined to get her justice, Minjiel began sketching out every single detail on paper, hoping to piece together broken memories for the ultimate truth. But his sketch revealed a painful contradiction. Erin's puzzling silence at the crime scene made her look guilty in the eyes of the entire world. Minyel suddenly remembered that this awful crime happened during the winter of their second year, the exact moment their destiny shattered. It was also when Erin abruptly cut contact, disappearing without a single word of explanation. He felt her agony, imagining her enduring cold rejection, and labeled a killer when she was completely innocent. Looking at the messy pile of books on the floor, Minjiel finally understood the silent torment his love was facing. She was so exhausted that her only escape was moving away and transferring schools. Yet this Sangakai High School did not bring her a better start in life either. Gripping his pen, he realized Erin endured everything until she broke skipping classes constantly, just to hide from this harsh reality. Minjiel wondered why she chose silence over clearing her name, letting endless suspicion slowly consume her entire life. Suddenly, his eyes widened in complete shock as a very familiar silhouette passed right by his window. That pale, hollow face was nothing like the bright girl he remembered, but his racing heart knew exactly who she was. Minyel caught his breath, realizing it truly was Erin, the girl he had been desperately searching for. Watching her walk alone and heartbroken across the courtyard, Minjiel was amazed to see that Erin actually came today. A tiny spark of hope instantly ignited inside his heart. But she had only quietly visited the counselor's office to register her attendance, slipping away immediately like a lost soul. Stick with me here because his desperate need for answers makes our main character ignore an extremely important class. Minyel makes his move. Pale as a ghost, he raises his hand to get the teacher's attention, hiding his true intentions. Clutching his stomach with a painful grimace, he lies about having sudden severe cramps. An unbearable ache to get excused to the nurse's office. But the moment he steps outside, he bolts like a madman, racing straight toward the exit gates, while Gina is left behind in the classroom. Absolutely shocked to see their top-tier student model ditching class in the middle of the day just to escape. Under the burning sun, catching his breath, Minjiel quickly wipes the sweat from his anxious face, staring intensely down the empty street, calculating the exact route she must have taken. Minjiel knows with absolute certainty she went this way, as it is the only road home. Minyel runs desperately. Trust me on this, he knows exactly what Erin needs right now. His own past was also dragged into absolute darkness by merciless bullies who humiliated him constantly. Those guys mocked him, calling him trash, leaving him frozen, and forced to endure all that pain in complete silence. The isolation got even worse when classmates labeled him a thief, warning everyone to watch out if he was nearby. Cruel rumors that he was stealing supplies from the younger students cornered him, making his whole world feel suffocating. Even the teacher, who should have been fair, cruelly forced him to apologize without a single shred of proof. Weeping bitterly right there in the staff room, he learned the hard way that absolutely nobody in this world would stand up for him. Now pay attention, because even his parents doubted him, assuming he lied for toys. He lies awake in pitch darkness, listening to them blame each other for his behavior. Minjiel realized his family ties were officially broken. School became a daily mental nightmare, turning him into a lonely ghost facing constant rejection from everyone around him. He drags his feet along a massive concrete wall, whispering to himself that this crushing agony would never let him live. Staring blankly with hollow eyes, his face shows the absolute exhaustion of a broken soul standing on the edge. He only wanted one thing in life: for this miserable world to finally end. The ultimate humiliation hits in class when his deskmate begs the teacher to move so he does not steal anything from her. The teacher agrees, instantly, mockingly asking the class if anyone wants to sit with a social outcast like him. I know what you are thinking, but a hand suddenly raises high, shattering that suffocating classroom silence, declaring with absolute confidence that she will take that seat. Ignoring the hateful glares, Erin grabs her notebooks and walks over to the boy sobbing at his desk. Minyel holds his breath, remembering how Erin's bright smile pulled him from the deepest darkness. Back to the present. He searches frantically for her through the dark streets, understanding the heavy pain Erin carries inside. He is not looking for some grand miracle, but he refuses to settle for cheap, empty pity. Minyel runs with every ounce of strength he has left, his mind locked onto one single goal: to finally be the one standing by her side. With determined eyes, he vows to be the only person who will truly listen to her tearful, painful story. A desperate shout of her name makes Erin spin around, shocked to see her old friend leaning against the wall, gasping for air, yet solemnly promising that he won't let her suffer through this loneliness alone again. Erin stands completely still under the bridge, her tiny silhouette radiating an overwhelming sadness and emptiness that sends chills down your spine. His gentle voice calling her name echoes in the air, failing to pierce the shield around her frozen soul. The first cold raindrops hit the ground, signaling an emotional storm that threatens to destroy both of them. The sky turns pitch black, releasing a heavy downpour, as if trying to wash away their agonizing pain. Soaked under the freezing rain, he covers his mouth in pure horror as he meets her completely lifeless and empty eyes. Today's relentless storm washes away all hope, forcing him to witness the devastating truth of this cruel reality. Minyel suddenly stops under the bridge, panting heavily as he sees Erin's lonely silhouette standing right before him. A cold sweat of confusion washes over him, his mind racing with questions, unsure how to break this suffocating silence. Shivering in the cold rain, Erin asks him with a trembling voice if he really transferred schools just for her. That question freezes Minjiel, stunned that she knew his secret, but Erin quickly looks down to hide her face. So what do we take from this? Clinging to her clothes, she confesses her family forced her transfer to Sangak. You and I are about to watch Minjiel desperately explain how he threw away his entire future and soul just to see her. But Aaron's reaction completely freezes his blood as he looks into eyes suddenly filled with deep guilt and sheer terror. Suddenly, she drops to the ground, choking on her tears while begging for forgiveness, making the entire world freeze around them. The real blow lands when she confesses to ignoring every single call and text for years, without giving any explanation. Heartbroken, she turns her back to walk away. She deeply feared that he would grow to hate her, but her dark, haunting past forced her to run. Looking down, Erin confesses she just wanted to vanish from Minjel's life to bury that dark past forever. Minjel is shocked by her self-hatred. Erin insists he should not try to understand, calling herself the worst person alive. Suddenly, she grabs his hand tightly, asking through bitter tears if slapping her across the face would be enough to release all his built-up hatred. Erin presses his hand against her tear-soaked face, begging him with absolute desperation to strike her and end his pain. Watch closely, Minjiel freezes in total disbelief, seeing this once bright, happy girl begging for punishment with absolute desperation. Erin insists she would take 10 or even 100 strikes if it eased the guilt of abandoning him for so long, so that after paying her debt, he could walk away without looking back, leaving her behind like a clean slate. The endless pouring rain feels like a bleak future where the wounds of their souls will haunt them forever. Inside that dark tunnel, two silhouettes stand together in silence as the sound of heartbreaking sobs melts right into the heavy falling rain. Minjel whispers Aaron's name, with endless sadness, realizing the only light in his entire world has just gone out. I know what you are thinking, and yes, he finally realizes she thought he was furious about her vanishing for 3 long years. He stares in complete shock, noticing the raw, bleeding wounds on his old friend's trembling hands. A wave of deep agony hits him as he wonders in silence if she was ever actually okay. Slowly shaking his head, he bitterly realizes that she was never okay at all. Seeing his silence, Aaron screams out in pure desperation, demanding that he strike her, begging him repeatedly to let out all his anger so her tormented heart could find some peace. Minjel stands paralyzed, unable to believe this once glowing girl is now completely broken and sobbing at his feet. She gasps that she never deserved forgiveness and would take 100 blows just to make up for leaving. Unable to watch any longer, Minjiel steps in quickly and grabs her shoulders to stop this self-destructive nightmare. His voice is soft but steady as he promises that he would never ever lay a hand on her, no matter how dark their history is. She was his only motivation to study, grow strong, and return home to protect her. Staring up at the dark gray sky, drowning under the heavy storm, Minjel cries as he confesses that the only thing keeping him alive during his darkest, most hopeless days was knowing that she always held the most important place in his entire life. A confession so honest it makes her eyes widen in shock as her hands clutch tightly at her clothes. With painful effort, he steps closer, with sad but determined eyes, admitting he would trade any single thing just to see her again. Inside that cold, dark tunnel, they lock eyes through a thick white curtain of endless pouring rain, where their rawest truths seem drowned out by the storm. He lowers his head, gathering all his courage, and asks her with a shaking voice if the real reason she suddenly cut off all contact was because of that terrible unspoken tragedy from their past. A single question instantly makes Erin's eyes fly open in absolute bone-chilling terror as her world completely crumbles. With her heart shattered and that old wound ripped wide open, she completely loses her ability to stay calm. Desperate to deny reality, she looks away and leaves Minjiel standing in total silence, his face completely crushed. While staring out at the endless falling rain, Erin begins to panic, babbling broken and meaningless words. Desperately trying to escape the ghosts of her past, she stands on the absolute brink of a total mental collapse. Miguel steps forward, confessing he knows everything from Gina. Trust me, we are not ready for what is next. All right, let's dive into a devastating moment that leaves Erin completely paralyzed with absolute panic. With deep pain, he admits he knows every bloody detail of the UC school tragedy and how people judge her. A rotten, cruel reality like a dying animal in the muddy rain. Erin stays silent under the freezing water, but inside, Meal's soul, an even worse storm rages. A fierce denial erupts from his chest. He screams into the dark tunnel that he will never believe those horrible rumors people spread. With tearful eyes and a face heavily marked by pain, Miguel promises he could never see her as a cold-blooded killer. Erin freezes at his words, asking a bewildered question in the face of her old friend's blind faith. "Come with me," as she spins around with a freezing glare, bitterly demanding what right he has to judge her like this. Miguel freezes in his tracks at her harsh words, feeling a lump in his throat from the sheer pain surrounding Erin. His eyes widen with pure tension as his mind desperately searches through his memories for why he trusts her so deeply. Erin flashes a melancholic smile, challenging him to stand firm if he only knew the terrible truth of what happened that year. She remembers the painful reality that even those closest to her admitted they never truly understood who she really was. How could someone gone for 5 years ever understand her? Yet despite her cruel words, Miguel firmly grabs Erin's bloodstained hand, assuring her that he is the only one who can see her true soul. The glowing image of young Erin suddenly flashes back, driving Miguel to believe he is the only one who knows her real self. He screams through the storm, demanding to know if she is truly the monster of those cruel rumors. His fierce determination leaves Erin shocked. Her gaze falters as her icy shield completely shatters. A single bitter tear rolls down her pale cheek, proving her soul has endured far too much pain. Pay close attention because she cannot take it anymore. Erin spins around and bolts into the pouring rain, leaving Miel completely frozen behind. The boy stands paralyzed, from the shock eyes wide, as he watches her slip right through his fingers once again. The dark tunnel falls dead silent under the heavy rain, washing away every trace of her into the shadows. Miguel collapses in absolute exhaustion, letting out a heavy sigh that vanishes into the night like a tragic lament. He grabs his head in pure despair, terrified that his sudden outburst pushed Erin even deeper into her dark abyss. Yet in this whirlwind of bitter regret, Mingo's eyes turn sharp as he makes a choice. Meanwhile, Erin wanders off with a shattered heart, making Miel bitterly realize she hasn't actually changed. She's just desperately trying to guard her broken heart. Staring up at the gray sky, the boy wonders, through his pain, how to bring back that beautiful smile from years ago. The storm thrashes against the empty street, as if trying to smother the final fading spark of hope between them. Erin stands in silence under the freezing downpour, her silhouette dripping with a heavy weariness and loneliness that would break anyone's heart. Her eyes look completely hollow, as if the ghosts of her painful past have extinguished every bit of her joy. I know you agree with me here when Mingyel screams out that she was never that evil person. Her hands tremble violently as a brutal inner war rages right behind her cold, indifferent mask. Suddenly she lets out a bitter laugh, completely lost against the pure faith her old friend still has in her. Leaning against a post, Erin sadly confesses that fear of this reunion made her want to run away forever. She collapses in the rain, mixing her desperate sighs with the storm like a late plea to her tragic fate. The freezing storm rages with the force of a desperate scream, marking the start of rough days ahead. Standing outside the principal's office, Minjol must face the consequences of losing control over someone from his past. The teacher notices his confusion and grants him one last chance while sternly warning him about strict school rules. The boy lowers his head without a word, but inside his heart, it aches fearing Erin will completely shatter all by herself out there in the storm. Leaving the office, Miniol completely ignores the major risk of getting suspended. He only has one goal left to find her. Standing in the hallway, he is torn between his deep urge to protect her and the fear of hurting her with his rash actions. The arrival of Gina and her friends feels like a bucket of ice water, dragging him right back to reality and forcing him out of his dark thoughts to face them. Gina stares at his soaked uniform, demanding to know why he did something so crazy as running out into the storm. Miel politely rejects Gina's help, while she deeply suspects this sudden change of heart is because of that mysterious girl. The boy's eyes flash with cold determination as he resolves to become the shield that protects Erin from the cruel blows of fate. Gina is taken aback and turns around confused, asking why he is giving her such an unusual look. The boy scratches his head in deep awkwardness, showing overwhelming sadness, but you and I know the worst is yet to come. Get ready, because today you and I are diving into a heavy story he finally gathered the courage to ask for a private talk to clear the air. That sudden request completely shocked Gina, while their friends immediately got hyped up eagerly, waiting for some juicy drama. They enthusiastically pushed Gina right toward Minjiel, making up random excuses to leave them alone, totally clueless about how serious things actually were. All the teasing about a blooming romance made her blush furiously, leaving her to just wave a very awkward goodbye. Once they were alone, the vibe turned heavy. Gina stood there shyly, waiting for an explanation that actually made sense. Miniel froze his expression, turning dark as he spoke her name formally, bracing himself for a massive conversation. Gina looked him dead in the eye, revealing she saw him sprint out of school and knew Erin had been hiding in the guidance office. Those words hit him like a truck, making him realize with absolute shock that their secret meeting was no longer a secret. "Watch closely here, back in the hallway," Gina practically screamed at him in disbelief, demanding to know if he seriously risked everything just to run after Erin. Seeing him completely soaked, she frowned, demanding to know if they at least had a real talk, but he just rubbed his neck with bitter regret. Miniel offered a sheepish smile, admitting their encounter was incredibly brief and he could not stop Erin from walking away. That forced smile made the atmosphere feel even more suffocating, and Gina grimaced in annoyance, wondering what on earth was supposed to be so embarrassing about this. Furious, she grabbed Minjiel by his collar and shook him, telling him to snap out of it, because he looked like an obsessed stalker chasing a girl. Ignoring his absolute confusion, Gina angrily reminded him how serious skipping school without an excuse was, insisting they were in their senior year and he would ruin his future over a girl. Her harsh warning stung him deeply, making his pupils shrink as cold sweat broke out suddenly, remembering a massive piece of information. Completely brushing aside her advice, "Can you believe what he did?" He asked about Erin's grades, fearing the worst. That stubbornness left Gina totally drained. and she muttered to herself that this idiot had not heard a single word of her. Warnings quietly suspecting that Aaron had already given up and was planning to completely skip the college entrance exams. Before she could finish, Minjil grabbed her by the shoulders with absolute determination, begging his old friend to help him save Aaron from that deep pit of despair. Heavy rain blanketed the school, blending with the cold announcements of the stressful week that lay ahead. The teacher kept reminding them about midterm exams and the back-to-back mock tests waiting for them in May. Groans echoed through the classroom as everyone felt completely crushed by such a bleak-looking future. Amidst the complaints, the teacher told them to grow up while Minjiel silently grabbed his bag and walked out. While her friends invited Gina to go shopping with them, she immediately declined and told them to go on ahead without waiting. Under her best friend's suspicious gaze, Gina grew extremely nervous and flushed while trying to hide her thoughts. She took a breath and confessed she was meeting Minjiel, a bombshell that shook up her entire friend group. The girls squealed in excitement, teasing her endlessly to find out if this was the start of her first love. Gina quickly denied it all crossly, explaining that Minjiel only wanted to ask about their old friend Palot. She tried to act completely indifferent, convincing herself she would leave right after answering, since they were not even close. Looking at how bright Gina was with her friends, anyone would assume a sweet, dreamy school romance was starting. The girls kept teasing her about how comfortable she seemed with Minjiel, making Gina turn bright red and scream, denying everything out of pure embarrassment. Left alone, she thoughtfully watched him walk away, wondering why he was so obsessed with Aaron as she went down the hallway. With tears welling up, Minjel bared his soul, confessing that after so many years, he still suffered over hearing nothing from his old friend. Gina stayed quiet, with a heavy look, doubting if he was strong enough to face the bitter truth. She suddenly looked him in the eye and asked if he really gave his whole heart to Jew Aaron, leaving you and I with one massive mystery. The student stammered, searching for an excuse and get ready because his blushing face exposes the massive secret he hid so long. The air turned freezing cold when Gina spoke up firmly, wanting to make sure this search was not some cheap joke. She coldly recalled the tragic death of that male student back then, declaring she would never help him if he only wanted a thrilling story to satisfy his own curiosity. Mingyil froze at his classmate's harsh words, realizing the ghost of Aaron's past was far more sinister than any of the rumors. Standing right outside the teacher's office, Gina hesitantly confessed that even if Mingyil looked at her weirdly, she had to say it, turning her face away with determination, quietly stating her absolute belief that Aaron would never do the terrible things the rumors claimed. Hearing those words, Mingyel's eyes welled up with tears and turned completely red. And holding back his tears, he begged for help, his only wish to see Aaron's bright smile again in a desperate plea. Carrying a love so incredibly massive it shook Gina to her core, her pupils widening in absolute shock. The boy's touching sincerity completely shattered the very last of Gina's defensive walls. So she sighed, giving in to the situation, and nodded her head, agreeing to help him solve everything. She gently brushed back her messy hair to hide her blushing face, realizing she had never seen him look so vulnerable and full of pain. The heavy silence of the empty stairwell made Gina's chaotic thoughts spin even faster. Shocked by how much that shy high school boy had transformed into a completely different person, cutting her thoughts short when Mingyil suddenly appeared. Under the roof, surrounded by pouring rain, the boy opens his black umbrella, offering to share it with her to walk together and talk while they have some time. Walking side by side under that tiny umbrella, Gina cannot hide her curiosity and asks if he was always this kind, since his current self contrasts deeply with his lonely past and quiet high school student days. She looks back thoughtfully, claiming that the Minjeol of those years is absolutely nothing like the confident man standing here today. He was a loner back then, with no friends, barely speaking a word, with zero social skills, leaving Minjae to bitterly thank her for being so brutally honest with him. Under the rain, she stays silent and stares. Stay with me to see if she can find any trace of her old friend. She curiously asked him about his life over the last 5 years, and he looked down at his soaked shoes in deep hesitation, a shadow of doubt crossing his face before finally deciding to reveal the brutal, painful journey of his massive transformation. It all started by waking up at 5 in the morning to train with absolute wild fury, forcing himself to speak, to smile, and devouring countless books just to keep up with the rest of the world. Gina froze in shock, crying as she realized the immense effort he made to beat his own darkness. But Mingyel just smiled under his black umbrella, a smile that was no longer shy, but radiating the confidence of someone who had completely conquered his own destiny. He frankly confessed that pushing his limits was all for one single goal: to become someone worthy of standing right beside Aaron. Pay attention here. Gina fell silent at his overwhelming sincerity, silently realizing his deep love for Aaron had been his only guiding faith throughout this brutal, exhausting journey. Outside classroom, 2-1 friends excitedly invited Aaron to go out with a guy named June, while she quickly tied up her hair, politely turning down the offer because she had to rush straight over to her after-school tutoring class. Her friends gave each other knowing looks, teasingly asking if she finally had a date to walk home with Mingyel today. One of them wondered out loud why Aaron did not just use the academy's school bus to travel much faster. I know what you are thinking. One simple question and the whole atmosphere suddenly gets incredibly tense. Was she late? Erin ran her fingers through her hair, looking completely embarrassed, excusing herself by saying she preferred her freedom and felt awkward riding alongside the other students at the school. A knowing smile spread across Gina's face as she silently confirmed that Erin's secret was already completely out in the open. Gina exposed her friend's true feelings by asking her point blank if she just wanted to be closer to Mingyel. Come along with me as we watch Erin get teased by her friends for her super nerdy taste in guys making her die of embarrassment. They all envied Mingyel's crazy luck, swearing the poor guy had to be head over heels in love with her. Gina kept excitedly insisting that with just one simple word of confession, the boy would fall at her feet instantly. But a hand suddenly cut her off. Erin hung her head in total shame, her lips trembling, as if she wanted to speak but chose to hide her words. She snapped at her friend to shut up because she was being way too loud, her face bright red with embarrassment. Wasting no time, Gina gave a playful goodbye and ran off, leaving behind a thick cloud of pure awkwardness. Erin's eyes grew sad as she watched her friend leave, silently wondering if those jokes had actually caused some harm. When meeting Miel, Gina threw a very direct hint at him about the painful reality of their relationship, instantly making the boy fall silent. She looked at him with pure pity, promising herself to bury that painful truth forever to protect him. Mingyel repeatedly asked her how they first met, but froze upon learning that Erin had transferred back in the 2nd grade. Gina took a casual sip of her drink, firmly claiming that she was the very first person to enter Erin's lonely world back then. The reveal of this hidden past left Mingyel stunned, realizing he had absolutely no clue about what she went through. Watch closely because right here is where we travel back in time to see how it all began. Just when Aaron was struggling with an empty bus card, Minjiel was standing right there behind her. Without hesitating for a single second, the shy boy stepped up and paid 2 student fares. Sitting together now, Mingyil blushed in embarrassment and promised to pay her back, but Aaron brushed it off, saying it was barely 1,001. He insisted that things had to be fair, offering to do whatever she wanted to return the favor. He offered to share his class notes, and Aaron happily agreed right away, thinking that was more than enough. Suddenly, the boy confessed in all honesty that he thought Aaron was a truly good person. That sudden compliment left Aaron frozen, her eyes wide with shock as she frantically denied it, leaving him totally confused. Aaron seriously explained that he shouldn't throw that word around so easily because overusing it makes real goodness lose its value. Minyel stayed quiet for a moment and then nodded as if absorbing a valuable lesson from her deep philosophy. She kept explaining that being good isn't common at all, but rather an incredibly rare talent. Staring into the distance with dreamy eyes, she confessed she admired those people and always wished she was like them. Minyel turned around to assure her that someone like her was already more than good enough, but she instantly brushed it off. I know what you're thinking, but she insists she knows herself best, staring at her reflection and saying she's not good. Her eyes suddenly turned intense as she called out to Minjiel. She suddenly asked if he knew how to recognize a good person, leaving him speechless and only able to ask how. Aaron smiled, brightly pointed to her eyes with 2 fingers, and revealed that the secret is in the gaze. Minyo's eyes went wide as she explained that a person's true nature is completely visible when looking into their eyes. Even though he still doubted her, Aaron claimed with total confidence that she could read everything through a look. Minyel excitedly pointed at himself, daring her to try it on him, but when she agreed, he panicked and covered his face. Not letting him escape, Aaron leaned in incredibly close, lifting his chin with 1 finger to stare deep into his eyes for an answer, making his heart race wild. He completely froze solid as she softly muttered that looking at his eyes, she could see he was someone who, while his reflection shimmered in her eyes, making him suddenly wonder if they were just way too close. But his thoughts evaporated into thin air as the bus hit a massive bump, shaking the entire vehicle violently. The sudden jolt made Aaron lose her balance, sending her falling directly onto Mingyel's chest. The poor guy froze, solid, his face turning red as a tomato as he felt her warm breath so close. In the middle of that super awkward silence, he merely stammered her name, having absolutely no idea what to do. And that's where we leave them, with him holding her waist to save her fall, nervously asking if she's all right. Come along with me as they both stand up while the air turns awkward, and Aaron covers her face in embarrassment after admitting her absolute panic. Minyel's heart was still hammering, his face completely flushed from that sudden, unexpected intimacy. Eventually, Aaron breaks the silence with a smile, quickly changing the subject to ask what they were discussing. Just like that, the memory fades, returning to the present. Minyel buries his face in his desk, bitterly realizing he never got the answer he had been waiting for all this time. Right then, a classmate walks into the classroom to call out to Minjiel, but suddenly stops dead in his tracks. He is completely shocked to see another person sitting there muttering Aaron's name in total disbelief. The guy excitedly shakes Minjiel to wake him up, pointing out Aaron's presence, while teasing him about being alone with Park Gina yesterday. Another classmate throws his arm around Minjiel, joining in to pry about what private business required them to be alone, grinning as he accuses him of flirting with the transfer student who barely arrived a month ago. Overhearing their loud teasing, Erin, who had her head down on her desk, suddenly tenses up. It is a tiny reaction, but it proves she heard every single word. Minyel waves his hands quickly, insisting he has no romantic intentions like that. But his friend Misu refuses to drop it, demanding to know what really happened. Another classmate scoffs, teasing Misu for overreacting before giving Minjiel a knowing look and asking if they are even on the same level. Minjiel forces a fake smile just to play along. Yet an unsettling feeling grows inside him as he looks at Erin, realizing she finally returned after skipping school for so many days. Now pay close attention to this. Why is nobody else reacting? They literally just leave her sitting there in total heartbreaking isolation. He stands frozen quietly, wondering to himself if anyone even bothered to check on her while she was gone. When she walked in, not a single person greeted her. The entire class acts like she is completely invisible. Suddenly, the chilling words of his friend echo in his mind. Ever since sophomore year started, nobody talks to her, and she apparently does not care. Right then, Minjiel's gaze turns incredibly cold and sharp. You and I can practically feel his boiling rage. Without saying a single word to explain himself, he turns his back on his confused friends and walks away. Step by step, he approaches the isolated girl hunched over her desk, clearly trying to shield herself from the entire world. Cutting through that heavy, suffocating silence, Minjiel steps forward and greets his old friend, who remains buried in her arms. Erin slowly lifts her head, her eyes tired and confused as he gently asks if she made it home safely the other day. That simple, kind gesture instantly shatters the icy room, and every single eye in the class snaps directly toward them. Utterly overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight, Erin buries her face again, her entire body shaking violently from sheer panic. Like a cornered animal, she suddenly bolts upright to Minjiel's shock. Then, without a word, she runs out of the room, leaving everyone stunned. Minjiel is left standing, completely frozen, before her empty desk, bitterly watching the retreating back of his friend who had just run away from him yet again. At lunch, a classmate sets down his tray and tells him not to take it personally, since Erin always acts like that. Vicious rumors immediately start flying around the table. Some whisper about their history, but Minjiel admits he never expected such a painful reaction. Finally, a friend looks at Minjiel with absolute seriousness, warning him to stay far away from her, which prompts Minjiel to demand a real explanation. His friend reminds him that he must have already heard those dark rumors about Jew Erin from Gina. He explains that the vast majority of students in the school truly believe those toxic rumors are entirely true. Even though they do not personally care, he warns that if Minjiel tries getting close again, he will only end up hurting himself. Minjiel looks down at his tray, silently wondering what it actually means to get hurt in this situation. Suddenly, a wave of memories hits him, bringing back the vivid image of the old Erin, smiling and happily waving at him. He warmly remembers the first time Erin took the initiative to talk to him, and wonders if she also had to face harsh rumors in the past just to be by his side. After school, Minjiel quietly looks around for that familiar figure, and there she is, standing alone in the middle of the courtyard, wrapped in heavy solitude. Without hesitating, he calls out Erin's name. She spins around in absolute shock and terror, catching her breath heavily as if she had just run a marathon. Minjiel confesses he finally found her, but Erin recoils in terror, like she is seeing a monster, forcing him to beg her to stop running away. And in the end, it turns out he just wanted to give her a milk carton. What do you think of this unexpected twist? Join me as we watch how he worried because she hadn't eaten all day brought her food, fearing she might be starving. Erin's eyes shimmered with deep emotion at his sincerity, and she softly whispered her thanks for the sweet gesture. After accepting the milk, Miele shyly said goodbye, promising they would meet again very soon. Erin watched in silence as Minjol walked away, feeling a sudden rush of inexplicable emotions. The boy stopped and tried to steal a glance as if to speak, but chose to stay silent instead. She was left alone in the courtyard, staring at the milk before her gaze drifted off into the distance. Erin softly whispered Minjiel's name, but the wind carried her words away, leaving her in absolute silence. Minjiel looked completely lost in front of Erin, his face flushed red as he struggled to even start speaking. He tried to muster the courage to approach, but his awkwardness stood out against Erin, who quietly held the carton of milk. Absolute silence for Minjol. He wondered how to break this heavy tension without scaring her, and in his panic admitted he didn't know what to say. Watch closely here because their emotions were about to boil over in this reunion they'd both been waiting for. Minjel stole a deeply worried glance at Erin, feeling a tight knot in his chest, seeing her so cold and quiet like a complete stranger. Meanwhile, Erin stood frozen in the yard, staring blankly as she silently questioned her cruel, tragic fate. The painful memory of the past accident rushed back to Mingyel, knowing that was where Erin's misfortune truly began. He knew she was intentionally avoiding any mention of that tragedy, since it was a wound she didn't want to reopen, even though Miel desperately wanted to uncover the truth. But his kind heart kept him from hurting her broken soul, deciding to let go of his urge to question her, knowing that bringing up such a painful death would only pour salt on an open wound. Mignel looked at her with deep empathy, desperately wanting to support her, but not knowing where to begin. Treading carefully, he asked if she could show him the way she used to study back then. The question caught her off guard, since she hadn't touched a book in ages. Avoiding his eyes, Erin sadly confessed she had been away from studying so long she forgot. Learning that she had dropped out of school in her second year, Minjiel was shocked by how much time had passed. Tell me, do you think she really abandoned the dream they once shared? Minjiel quietly wondered if it was because of the accident or her choice to shut herself out from the world. He looked at her with resolve, gently proposing that if she was okay with it, he was ready to help her. He eagerly suggested starting fresh and studying together, bringing back memories of their old promise to attend the exact same university in Seoul. Even after taking such a long detour, he knew in his heart it was never too late. Erin looked at him calmly and agreed they still had time, proudly adding she could guide him, since she always got top grades. Minyel paused for a moment, weighing his choices, before gathering the courage to ask her to try one more time. Erin listened to his offer, deeply moved by the absolute sincerity Mingyel was showing her. Minyel waited for her answer in absolute suspense, terrified she would reject his sudden offer as silence filled the air. Erin seemed lost in unreadable thoughts while he kept his gaze steady, trying to hide his own doubts. He desperately wanted an answer from his old friend, whose expression suddenly softened, catching him completely off guard. Out of nowhere, Erin stepped close and whispered that he was still the same noble boy, making time stand completely still. He gazed at her with wide, astonished eyes, holding on to a fragile hope of reclaiming what they once had. The boy stood completely speechless while she suddenly looked surprised by her own words. Confused, Mingyel asked her to test if he really was that good. Right at that moment, the school bell rang, breaking the heavy tension. Erin quickly stood up, saying they had to head back, urging him to hurry. but as she got up, she hesitated and could only stammer her feelings. Worried, Miel asked if she would rather not walk into the classroom together. And that's where we leave them, with him totally stunned after hearing her say he's still a kind soul. All right, you and I are diving into a romance where a single confession completely freezes him, turning his face bright red. Shocked, he stammers out a question, unable to believe his ears. Meanwhile, Erin's eyes widen in sheer panic, instantly regretting letting those words slip out. She quickly looks away, stammering that she needs to use the restroom just to escape his gaze. Leaving Minjel standing completely alone in the hallway, Erin bolts. He simply scratches his head, utterly baffled by her sudden escape. He realizes he still lacks a proper answer, reminding himself that her return is about more than just simple kindness. Out in a quiet corner of the courtyard, Erin stares blankly at the sky, replaying her secret confession that she actually liked him. Regret washes over her face. Erin wonders what on earth she is doing and forces herself to snap out of it. Bright shafts of sunlight pierce through the leaves, painting a vibrant scene that directly clashes with the heavy shadows lingering inside her heart. Erin bows her head in doubt, bitterly telling herself that someone branded as a killer has no right to find happiness. Meanwhile, Gina freezes on the sidewalk as she spots Minjiel walking her way. Wearing his black backpack, he walks ahead silently, completely unaware of her eyes on him. Following behind him, Gina remembers that this is the exact route Minjel takes to school every single morning. The petite girl swallows hard, struggling to decide if she should actually step forward and say hello to him. Just look at her worried face as she hides around the corner. She wonders if they are even close enough to speak casually, feeling a sudden jolt of fear at her own boldness. After agonizing over it, she figures that when the traffic light turns red, Mignelle will have to stop, giving her the absolute perfect chance to talk. Her face flushes with confusion, torn between a simple greeting or using the upcoming exam as an excuse to talk to him. Sneaking up from behind, she timidly watches Minjel's expression as he continues walking, totally oblivious to her presence. Mignelle stares thoughtfully into the distance, and Gina notices he is searching for someone. Curiosity instantly takes over her face. She wonders what could possibly hold his attention so completely that he ignores everything else around him. Then her eyes widen as she suddenly pieces together an unexpected hidden truth. Erin's silhouette appears in the crowd, completely capturing Minjiel's intensely worried, love-struck gaze. Now pay attention, because Gina approaches with a knowing smirk, about to expose his best-kept secret. She bluntly asks him if he likes Ju Erin that much, making Minjiel jump and yell out in sheer shock. The atmosphere in the classroom turns tense when the teacher announces they must start rearranging the desks and chairs for the upcoming exams. Mignel sighs heavily while lifting his wooden desk, admitting he has not studied at all, and this is going to be a total disaster. Meanwhile, Erin sits near the front, completely paralyzed by an unbearable wave of anxiety, thinking to herself that the intense pressure and nerves are making her feel physically sick. Mignel glances back at her, even though he never got a clear answer in the past. Seeing her at school today makes him feel like the distance between them is slowly shrinking. Still, he secretly feels a pang of regret, realizing their exam seats will be very far apart, no longer close like they were in the old days. Since Minjil transferred mid-semester, his student number is dead. Last at position 33, isolated from everyone else. As he holds his pen to start, his mind suddenly drifts back to the memories of those early days in middle school. Mignel used to love exam days because back then his number was 16 and Erin's was 17. an incredibly close and memorable distance. He fondly recalls the moment Aaron playfully turned around to suggest creating secret signals for the exam, leaving him completely stunned. Seeing Aaron's radiant smile as she laughed it off as a joke, Minjiel froze silently, wondering if she was just playing with his feelings. Aaron concentrates intensely while whispering math formulas, showing a serious side completely unlike her usual self. When the proctor orders everyone to clear their desks to start the exam, Erin flinches and quickly apologizes, her face tense and completely flushed with deep embarrassment. In reality, her grades were always top tier. That extreme seriousness Erin showed during every test was what left a lasting impression on her classmates. And that's where we leave it today, watching him quietly admire the girl who always gives her absolute best. See you next time. The school bell rings, shattering her memories as the teacher hands out exam papers in the suffocatingly silent classroom. Miguel looks completely terrified. The exact moment his exam sheet is placed on his desk. A sudden wave of intense anxiety makes his breathing quicken far more than usual. This literature exam is brutal, especially since all the drama from his transfer kept him from studying properly. Sitting silently before the paper, Mingiel cannot stop worrying, wondering if Aaron is strong enough to survive this test. Over in the corner, Aaron sits completely spaced out, looking exhausted and deeply isolated, trapped under an invisible weight of psychological pressure with absolutely no escape. Her sorrowful eyes stare into nothingness, letting painful childhood memories torment her with pure agony. Deep down, Erin believed this multiple choice exam was her only path to a brighter future. Every single time she pressed her pen down to fill in those blank spaces, her chest swelled with hope, convinced that every correct answer would light up her path, making her future shine brighter than ever before. Erin had worked tirelessly memorizing every single topic, solving complex math problems, and perfecting every word. But while Minjol got lost in noisy crowd chatter, a brutal twist hijacked her life. Ever since that horrible incident, now pay attention here because the dark ghosts of her past are about to hijack Erin's mind mid-class. Her pen freezes against the white paper as she realizes, with bitter dread, that she cannot remember a single thing. Cold sweat drips down her panicked face as she realizes that no matter how hard she tries, it is completely useless. Feeling entirely helpless with a blank mind, she drops her pen onto the hopeless empty answer sheet. Those bright lights promising a golden future fade away one by one, plunging Erin into the deepest, darkest despair. As her future slowly sinks into total darkness, Erin feels like she has absolutely no strength left to find even a single ray of hope. Watching her hopes shatter, she bitterly accepts she is completely lost in a life that only brings her injustice. Lost in absolute emptiness, the young girl stands frozen, her legs far too exhausted to take even one more step forward. The urge to run away tempts her like a sweet poison, promising to cure all the pain she has carried for so long. She tells herself to stop trying, believing that giving up completely would make everything so much simpler, hiding in the deep darkness. Erin believed that by expecting absolutely nothing from her future, she would finally stop hating herself for her mistakes. I know exactly what you are thinking right now, but a brutal reality is about to shatter her entire world. She squeezes her exhausted eyes shut, trying to quiet the raging storm inside a heart already covered in unhealed wounds. Suddenly, Mingiel walks over, promising to help her and gently asking if she wants to start studying all over again by his side. Aaron looks up with hesitant eyes, feeling incredibly self-conscious and wondering if she truly deserves such kindness when she is right on the edge of breaking down. She wonders if she could ever escape this dark abyss, if she only dares to hold the hand he is offering. Suddenly, the classroom door swings open and an excited student yells that the official test answers are finally out. As the correct answers are read aloud, frustrated groans erupt from disappointed students, instantly turning the quiet room into absolute chaos. As we watch this chaotic classroom, Minjol sits in absolute silence, keeping his eyes glued to the girl sitting right in front of him, staring at her empty seat. "Trust me, you're going to love this." Feeling a sudden emptiness, fearing Aaron left without saying goodbye, Minjiel packs up fast to go find her. His heart was pounding, absolutely determined to find her and talk a bit after enduring those highly stressful hours of their exam. Suddenly, he stops dead in his tracks, completely amazed to see Aaron's familiar silhouette leaning against a pillar in the quiet school courtyard. "Now watch closely." Mingyel's eyes light up with pure joy and curiosity as he gently asks her why she is still here instead of heading home. Erin shyly casts her gaze downward, admitting in a barely audible whisper that she just wanted to linger in this quiet place a little longer. Meal's face instantly brightens with a spark of hope, feeling that his sincere warmth is finally starting to reach her heavily guarded soul. And that's where we leave it, his heart pounding, wondering if she was truly waiting. Such a beautiful story. He quickly smacked his head to wake up from his fantasies, trying not to misinterpret things, but trust me, this drama is going to break your heart. With his face burning red, Mignel tried to regain his composure, but the words got completely stuck in his throat. Lowering his voice, he suggested they walk home together while her gaze remained lost in a deep, sad melancholy. Erin gave a quiet, gentle nod, clutching her blouse with trembling hands just to hold on to something. They walked in absolute silence through the noisy street. Every single step carried painful secrets they just could not share. Miniel tried to break the ice by gently asking how her midterm exams went today. Sensing her quiet disappointment, he apologized, remembering her studies had been suspended for ages, but she whispered it was fine. With newfound determination in his eyes, he offered to tutor her again, just like he had mentioned before. Facing her small, fragile back, he poured his heart out, asking if she would let him help her start over from scratch. She blinked in hesitation, wondering if taking Mingyel's hand would truly save her from such a dark, bottomless abyss. Walking right beside him, pay close attention to her trembling voice as she confesses her deepest, darkest fear. She gripped her clothes in pure agony, terrified that being near him would make her weak enough to reveal everything. Mingyel completely froze, feeling a sharp pain in his chest, seeing how broken and vulnerable his childhood friend truly was. He leaned closer, and with the most reassuring voice, he promised she did not have to fear anything anymore. Staring directly into her sorrowful eyes, he told her she could trust him with absolutely anything, begging her to lean on him. In the quiet safety of that lonely corner, completely alone, Erin stared at her empty hands, resting her exhausted head on his shoulder, and asked in a shaky voice if he would still treat her with tenderness, even if he discovered the dark truth about her past. Mingyil froze as she desperately asked if he would stay. "And I know you are wondering, will he?" Softly accepting her fragile state, he gently asked what kind of terrifying things she had been hiding all this time. She hesitated, staring blankly into the empty space before sharing a chilling glimpse of the secret tormenting her. Her voice shook violently as she whispered the word murder, turning the air freezing cold and suffocating. Minyel stood completely paralyzed, at absolute panic written all over his face after hearing that. Suddenly, Erin pressed her head against Mingil's chest, her tiny body shaking uncontrollably as if she were about to completely break down right there. Inside, Mingyel's heart ached as his worst fears were confirmed. Erin looked up with guilty, tearful eyes, asking if such a terrible sin could ever be forgiven. Without waiting for an answer, she begged him to pretend he heard nothing and ran away in terror, leaving him calling her name into the dark. His eyes widened in sheer horror as he realized the extreme danger his friend was in. In that split second, he screamed for her to stop as she ran straight into traffic, completely ignoring the red light and an oncoming speeding car. Blinding headlights engulfed Erin, signaling a devastating crash that was about to unfold right in front of him. Minyel screamed out in desperation for her to watch out, but she stood frozen before the oncoming danger. Panicked and drenched in cold sweat, he lunged forward, with everything he had desperate to snatch her from the jaws of death. A miracle happened in the blink of an eye, sending the world spinning in a blur. The car sped off into the empty street, leaving behind a terrifying scene of a near-fatal tragedy. Mingyil held Erin tightly as they both crashed onto the asphalt. His breath was wild and ragged terror still pounding fiercely against his chest. He frantically asked if she was hurt, his face twisted in pure agony for the girl he loved. Erin stayed completely quiet, burying her face into his chest, shaking like a small animal desperately seeking a safe haven. Minyel was speechless, feeling the deep trauma in her soul as he realized just how utterly terrified she was. Her silent tears and choked sobs leave us completely heartbroken over such deep pain, holding the weeping girl close. Let's dive into this drama. Mingyil swears someone so fragile could never commit such a horrific crime. He squeezes Erin's trembling shoulders, convincing himself that even if she had something to do with that crime, he leans in worriedly to look closely, asking if she is all right after such a massive emotional shock. Through a sea of tears, Erin stammers an apology, desperately confessing it is best to live completely cut off from the world. Minyel's eyes instantly fill with pure determination, as a highly risky idea begins to take root at this critical moment. In that lonely corner, he holds her tight to protect her fragile body, begging her to trust and lean on him. Their hands clasp tightly like an unbreakable vow, and Mingyil convinces himself that he has made his ultimate choice today. He buries his face in her shoulder, whispering that even if she actually did those horrible things, she just confessed. He is ready to become her accomplice and carry that dark secret by her side until the very end. Erin is so shocked she stops crying, eyes wide at his madness. Pay attention because everything changes right now. Staring directly into the broken soul of his old friend, Minyel firmly promises her that he will never leave her alone again. He holds her silently in the middle of the street, knowing that even if the whole world turns its back on him, he will protect her. Meanwhile, over at the school courtyard, Gina completely freezes upon spotting a very familiar silhouette. Seeing Mingyil standing all alone and deeply lost in thought instantly sparks the young girl's curiosity. Gina whispers Mingyil's name to herself, wondering if he is finally heading back home. Seizing the perfect chance, she decides to walk over and greet him. But right as she prepares to call out, she stops dead in her tracks, eyes wide with pure shock as she realizes he is not alone but with Aaron, who is hiding timidly right around the corner. Gina stands paralyzed, her mind turning into absolute chaos as she tries to process Aaron being there with Minjiel. Nearby students begin whispering nasty rumors, completely shocked to see Minjiel standing so close to that weird girl. One girl sneers with malice, whispering that he is probably trying to seduce an unstable crazy person just to do something bad. They venomously wonder if Minjiel will end up losing his life because of this too. While others gossip, Gina bitterly realizes getting close to Aaron means trouble. Let's be honest, wouldn't you think the exact same thing? Suddenly, she remembers Minjiel's tearful eyes and his desperate wish for her to smile happily like before, along with his confession of wanting to be worthy of her. That night, Gina tosses and turns in her bed, unable to fall asleep. Tormented by those thoughts, she sits up telling herself that warning Minjiel to stay away from Aaron is completely useless. Wondering if he truly believes she is innocent, she lies back down, imagining the terrifying consequences if that is true. She recalls confronting him with deep suspicion, warning him not to pretend he had simply been following Aaron around. Lying flat in her bed, Gina's expression hardens with absolute determination. She knows all too well that Minjiel can no longer look at this situation objectively. She wonders if he would walk away instantly upon discovering that Aaron is not as innocent as she claims. She realizes just how incredibly dangerous it is for Minjiel to stay close to that girl right now. She is convinced someone needs to tell him immediately. Meanwhile, Minjiel sends a text to Aaron, asking if she got home safe, waiting anxiously in panic. He desperately tries to calm himself down, thinking that maybe she will not reply right away and that he should stop overthinking every little detail. Suddenly, a notification pops up, making him jump to check his phone, full of hope only for his excitement to die seeing it as just spam. He drops his head onto the desk with a heavy sigh, realizing he is completely unable to focus on anything else. After tormenting himself for a while, his eyes flash with resolve as he makes a secret major decision. From that day on, they walk home together several times until one afternoon Minjiel softly calls out her name. Summoning his courage, he shyly asks if her phone number is still the same one she used to have. This leaves Aaron frozen. Trust me, you and I absolutely need to see what comes next. You and I both know that insane feeling when your crush finally gives you their number, right? After saving her contact, he sweetly reminds her she can call him anytime she needs absolutely anything. He hesitates to speak, raising the curiosity of Aaron, who stares closely, waiting for him to continue. Surprisingly, she takes the lead, asking about his private tutoring, suggesting they study together after school. That single response makes his heart skip a beat. They will start studying tomorrow right after finals. Once he gets home, he immediately begins planning everything. He knows that given her situation, it is best to review 10th grade basics first. He decides to start with math, fully aware that subject has always been Aaron's weakest point. Right then, an unexpected notification startles him, forcing him to grab his phone in a rush. He stares at his screen, confused by his mother's urgent text. He looks up the address. She sent a small, quiet, roadside spot, famous for spicy chicken ribs. The moment he steps through the front door, he instantly senses a bizarre, heavy tension waiting for him. He freezes upon seeing his parents waiting at a table. His mother waves, gesturing that she has already ordered their food. Staring down at the hot soup bowl, his mother begins scolding him, saying his low grades prove he is getting lazy, reminding him that during senior year, there is no time to waste. Pay close attention here because he jumps up in panic when she mentions a cram school, but she only coldly asks him if he has already forgotten the warning she gave him before. She continues criticizing his poor grades and demands he take responsibility if he wants to stay, ignoring his stammered excuse that exams are not over. She coldly repeats that if he fails his midterms again, she will not let things slide. She tells him she already booked an appointment, so tomorrow he must go straight to the academy after class, leaving him in complete shock. The boy tries to stammer an excuse about having important plans during weekday afternoons, but his father firmly cuts in, ordering him to obey his mother if he wants to keep living under their roof. Amid that uncomfortable family dinner, he stays silent, sweating coldly as his parents praise the food and promise to return soon. Back in his room, he collapses onto his bed, completely exhausted, silently blaming his mother for using his grades as an excuse to force him into tutoring, when his grades were not even that bad. He stares at his dark phone, feeling heavy anxiety about the looming trouble. And just when we thought everything was going downhill, a tiny light shines in the darkness. He sits up straight in his bed, staring at the bright screen with a mixture of intense curiosity and absolute intrigue. His eyes widen in shock at the notification. It's a direct text message from Erin. She apologizes for falling asleep right when she got home and sweetly asks if he made it back safely. Excitement makes him leap out of bed, instantly curing his bad mood, as a huge grin lights up his face, secretly celebrating that text message while thinking about how incredibly sweet she can actually be. He sits there hugging his knees, confused, wanting to lock in their tutoring session, but worrying that texting back too quickly will make him seem desperate. He realizes he cannot mention the cram school, fearing she might feel guilty and cancel their plans to study together. He tries to explain everything logically, worried a text might end up way too long and confusing, so he looks down deep in thought. He spends a long time debating what to do. Meanwhile, Erin is relaxing in her bed when a sudden alert on her phone startles her completely. She opens her eyes in pure shock, feeling a mix of shyness and curiosity at his bold move, as his text on screen suggests they just call each other. He answers the call incredibly nervous, shyly asking if it is okay to talk right now, sighing in relief when she says it is absolutely fine. He asks what she was doing, and she says she wants to sleep, leaving him worried about her insomnia. But trust me, you will want to see what happens to them tomorrow. All right, you and I are about to dive into some serious chemistry because hearing she slept well made Minjil laugh with pure joy. So finally, gathering his courage, he brought up the study group again, suggesting they meet at a different time instead of right after class. Erin asked him, sounding pretty worried about the new time. Glancing at his massive stack of books, Minjiel shyly suggested studying before class since his afternoon courses were completely packed. Erin immediately hesitated since waking up that early sounded impossible, leaving Minjiel in a tough spot as he scrambled to figure out a schedule that would actually work. By then, the clock already read 2:40. Suddenly, Erin lowered her voice, feeling a bit embarrassed, confessing that she felt really guilty for letting him handle absolutely all of the planning on his own. Hearing her hesitate, Minjiel smiled warmly to reassure her, even though his heart was racing as he hung on her every word. His eyes totally lit up when Erin shyly confessed that she actually had some free time on the weekends too. "You're going to want to see how this guy celebrated." He cheered and locked it in immediately, thanking her, though she was the one truly touched by his sweet sincerity. Flopping onto his bed with a massive grin, Minjiel secretly celebrated having the perfect excuse to see her alone, promising to call again soon. Aaron softly asked if that was the only reason he called, forcing Minjiel to shyly admit he was worried texting would take forever. They finally hung up after a sweet, lingering goodnight. Minjiel stared down at his dark phone screen, feeling a strange mix of emptiness and deep regret. Sitting frozen in the dark, he wondered if he'd been way too impulsive by calling her. But deep down, his gut told him there was something incredibly off about the way she said goodbye. Still, he told himself that hearing her voice tonight was the absolute best thing that could have happened. Staring at the ceiling with a huge smile, he felt incredibly happy, believing that for just a second, they were finally back to the old days. Meanwhile, Erin lay there in total silence, staring blankly at the glow of her phone screen, her mind completely racing. She tossed and turned restlessly in her small bed, staring sadly into the deep darkness of her room. Minyo's sudden request to talk over a phone call kept replaying in her mind, making her heart race uncontrollably. She buried her face in her hands, messing up her hair, trying to quiet that exact whirlwind of confusing emotions you and I have definitely felt before. Erin groaned face first into her pillow, completely defeated, and realizing that sleep just wasn't going to happen tonight. Fast forward to the next morning, Minyel walked into the Songwon Prep Academy, where the receptionist recognized him instantly and gave him a super warm welcome. She mentioned his mom had already told her all about him, joking that this small town academy was nothing compared to Seoul, which got a nervous chuckle out of him. Following her down the hallway, Minyel learned their college prep class only had 9 high school seniors in total, and almost none of them went to his school. He quietly accepted a massive stack of practice tests, promising to finish them all before 7 in the evening. After showing him where the student lounge was, she opened the classroom door and they were immediately greeted by a super cheerful girl. She excitedly mentioned that 2 students from Sanggak High were in this class. Then suddenly, Gina appeared, completely freezing in her tracks. The receptionist immediately chimed in, telling them they should become great study partners. Minyel stood there in absolute shock, paralyzed by his old friend's presence, while Gina's face turned completely bright red. He quietly mumbled her name in total disbelief, while outside the heavy stress of prep academy life hung over everyone. Once class started, the teacher at the blackboard asked a quick review question about the 3 key elements of a story. Gina blurted out character, event, and setting, but her mind was still totally focused on why Minjel was even there. Staring at the back of his head as he sat right in front of her, she couldn't stop questioning his motives. Sitting at her desk, a totally crazy but unsettling thought started creeping into her mind. Did he actually sign up for this exact same academy just to be close to her? She brushed it off as ridiculous, but right then Minjiel whispered her name. What do you and I think is going to happen next? Let's dive into this moment where her friend leans in to whisper kindly, offering her his correction tape. That sudden, unexpected offer completely startles Gina, who turns around with a look of pure confusion. As their hands brush while exchanging the tape, she mutters a quick thanks through some seriously awkward tension. Clutching the correction tape tightly, she cannot help but question what Minjio's true intentions really are. Her gaze drifts down to the messy crossed-out page, wondering if he was secretly watching her. Suddenly, she remembers Minjol smiling in the rain, promising to become worthy of Aaron, causing her expression to harden, her gaze growing deep and calculating. Gina rolls the correction tape right over those written words. She figures Miguel is only acting nice to get closer to Aaron. He was never like this in elementary school. The elevator doors slide open. Miguel looks surprised, admitting to Gina that he had absolutely no clue she attended this academy. Frowning and even more startled, Gina demands to know why he is there, to which he replies, his parents chose this place. Pay close attention as the elevator descends to the lobby. Gina mentions she only recently started studying in grade 12, so she has not been here long. He smiles and suggests they hang out, assuming she barely has any friends here, which makes Gina snap back that she has plenty of friends, and he is dead wrong. The boy smiles with a sparkle in his eyes, admitting he was worried about finding anyone trustworthy here. Seeing his innocent smile under the streetlights, she freezes quietly, wondering if they are actually that close. While they stand there, waiting for the bus, Gina, intrigued, asks if his grades did not used to be among the very top students. Miguel is shocked since he never brought it up, but she heard he topped the classes from Seoul to middle school. Miel looks down with a heavy gaze. He sadly confesses his grades dropped, forcing him to take extra classes on his parents' orders. Gina stares in absolute disbelief, annoyed and wondering if that even counts as a drop in grades. You and I would feel the exact same frustration building up inside her chest. He hangs his head gloomily, explaining that transferring schools distracted him, causing his academic performance to slip. Gina quietly studies his face with a sharp, piercing look, searching for the truth behind his words. Suddenly she realizes that distraction of his has a first and last name, Jew Aaron. She fidgets restlessly while putting the pieces together, breaking the bus stop silence. Gina drops a bombshell. She saw him walking home with Aaron, causing him to flinch in total shock. She acts completely casual, subtly asking if her friend is doing okay these days. Mile falls silent, looking visibly sad and anxious, thinking about the girl he cares for so deeply. That text from Aaron, saying she is free this weekend, flashes through his mind like a sudden spark. Suddenly, Mio bursts into a bright, cheerful laugh, leaving Gina completely baffled by her companion's sudden, dramatic change in attitude. Gina glares at him suspiciously, immediately realizing that something very strange is playing out right here. Staring at Minjiao's back, she realizes she never expected to see him change this much. She worries people might gossip behind his back, but warning him directly feels too awkward. Miguel breaks the quiet, with a question making her turn to him with obvious doubt in her eyes. Out of nowhere, Gina drops a heavy question, demanding to know what Minjol would do if Jew Aaron confessed her love to him first. He blushes, stuttering, as he asks why she keeps pressing, but she demands an honest answer. Miguel goes quiet in embarrassment, hesitating before muttering that even he does not know for sure. An image of Aaron sitting all alone flashes back. And trust me, you and I are just starting to see Gina's gaze turn sharp and serious. Let's dive into a twisted dilemma that will leave you completely speechless. It all starts with one brutal question. What if Aaron confessed to a murder? Would he turn her over to the police or cover up the crime in secret? Miguel completely froze, wondering what kind of insane question she was actually asking. But Gina, cold as ice, insisted this was a highly necessary scenario to think about. She admitted she just couldn't understand his blind devotion to Aaron. And honestly, everyone else around them felt exactly the same way. In a quiet voice, Miguel explained that Aaron was trapped. It was an obsession, she just needed someone in her corner when everyone else assumed the worst. But Gina cut him off instantly, warning that someone so emotionally unstable would cling to anyone out of sheer desperation, making her dangerous. She kept hammering on about how toxic and destructive everyone else would view their relationship, leaving Mingyel totally thrown off. Furious, he asked her what he was even supposed to do. With a lump in his throat, he asked if he should just abandon her like the rest. His intense glare made Gina step back, totally shocked. Gina softened her voice, trying to explain that in Aaron's current fragile state, dating and dealing with all this heavy attention could become an absolutely suffocating mental burden for her. Now watch closely. This is exactly why she asked him that twisted question about covering up a crime. But Mingyel shot back immediately, pointing out that her entire theory already assumed Aaron was guilty. Gina locked eyes with him, demanding to know why. He was the only person in the entire world who dared to defend her innocence like this. She reminded him of the brutal truth. Aside from him, absolutely everyone believed she was a killer. His chest tightened with pure rage over how incredibly unfair this was to the girl he loved. Clenching his fists, he muttered with a shaky voice that these were just cruel rumors, asking if she actually believed that garbage too. Gina stared back, challenging him on why he refused to believe it when he wasn't there to see what happened that year either. Mingyil fell into a tense silence. Let's pause here because he then dropped a devastating truth. She was in the exact same position. The air at the bus stop instantly turned icy and heavy, suffocating both of them with their own thoughts. Gina bit her lip with deep regret, realizing her own impulsiveness had just pushed them into a total dead end. Mingyel looked down, totally defeated, and quietly apologized for creating such an awkward, suffocating tension between them. Gina waved her hands quickly to reassure him, admitting she got carried away by her emotions and never meant to hurt him with her words. He gave a bitter smile, saying he should have been rational like her, leaving her chilled by his hidden anger. A cold sweat washed over her. She looked down completely speechless under the icy vibe he was radiating. After a chilling silence, check this out. Mingyil shattered the quiet to bring up the past, leaving Gina completely caught off guard. Staring blankly into space, he dropped a highly disturbing fact right before his death. That student had a massive fight with Aaron. Gina lowered her voice to share a dark rumor that was whispering through the hallways of Yesk High. They said it was the very first time anyone saw the quiet, reserved Aaron lose her temper so hysterically. Though nobody knew what actually triggered the fight, the terrifying truth is that the tragedy happened just one day after that massive clash. Gina stared intensely at Mingyel, asking if Aaron's deep hatred had pushed her to commit murder. She insisted that even if she didn't physically kill him, she was up to her neck in the crime. Aaron's terrified face and that dark word crime kept echoing in his mind, suffocating him just as the late-night bus pulled up. Gina told him to think logically. They were in their final year now, and he needed to focus entirely on school. She offered one final piece of advice if he wanted to date. It was best to wait until next year. And with that, the bus coldly drove away. Left alone on the dark street, Mingyel couldn't shake the image of that violent fight between Aaron and the victim. As he walked, he suddenly remembered one critical detail. The student who died that tragic year was a guy. Stick with me to see how this unfolds as Gina's sad eyes get lost in the reflection of the night. Let's dive in and see how she deeply regretted attacking Aaron so harshly without any real proof. Words she honestly never had the intention of saying. She remembered Minjul shaking with helplessness, clutching his shirt and whispering if he should just ignore Aaron's deep pain. Gina rested her head against the window, exhausted. Her mind was a total mess after her friend's sudden violent outburst. Bus number 13 rolled quietly down the lonely mountain road, carrying Gina's heavy anxiety as she felt she had absolutely no right to interfere. Morning sun warmed the rooftops, yet the air felt mysterious. Suddenly, Ninjal showed up wearing brand new clothes. Clumsily, he stared at his phone map, searching for the address of a highly important meeting. He stopped before Cafe Jenga, hidden in remote alleys, wondering why such an isolated spot felt so suspicious. Suddenly, Minjil froze in absolute terror. Watch closely, look at this. His heart pounds, seeing what is happening. Right then, Gina's harsh question echoed in his mind, asking why he blindly trusted Aaron. Dazed, Mingiel muttered a late apology as a gray childhood memory rushed back. He stood still under the pale sunlight, his sad eyes lost in the distance, trying to suppress that constant ache tormenting his heart. Walking completely alone down the empty street, Minjol told himself not to dig up the past. They weren't good memories, just as he spotted a frail, elderly figure walking ahead. Suddenly, his eyes locked onto a wallet lying on the ground covered in dry leaves. Minyel quickly called out to get their attention, chasing after the person who just dropped it. Holding the wallet high, he shouted to warn the other person about their lost valuable item. That shout startled a young girl who turned around in disbelief as a stranger approached her. Little Mingyil panted from running so hard, clumsily handing the pink wallet to the girl his age. Realizing it was hers, the girl squealed in happy surprise while Mingyol shyly mumbled that she had dropped it at the crosswalk. Aaron flashed a radiant smile and thanked him, amazed that he had brought it from so far away. I bet you felt that too, that innocence froze Mingyel as he shyly experienced love for the first time. He quietly watched Aaron's retreating figure, skipping away and humming happily, secretly thinking to himself that she was absolutely beautiful. Mile just stood there watching her silently, assuming that the girl must be right around his own age. Meanwhile, Erin remained focused on the wallet in her hands, her eyes sparkling with pure happiness, never imagining she had just left a permanent mark on his heart. In the sunny fourth-grade courtyard, the little boy wondered if they might actually attend the same school. Memories flooded back, showing Mingyel as a quiet kid, always withdrawn and lost in the noisy crowd of students. In his lonely world, he admitted to himself that he had only one friend he could truly trust. The whole classroom focused on the powerful royal knight card capable of destroying everything in its path. Boys crowded around Beckhamon, praising his insane luck for pulling that ultra-rare card just this morning. Sitting in the corner looking sad, Miol felt like he was just an invisible kid. Noticing this, Jin Su walked over to his desk and asked with curiosity if he also liked collecting magic cards like the rest. When Mingyil shyly shook his head, Jinsu seemed disappointed and clicked his tongue, muttering that it was truly a huge shame. Right after his good friend flashed a shiny deck, excited to show him first some awesome warrior cards he had just got. Farther away, the commotion still surrounded Hamon's group, with that card being the center of major admiration. Minyel stared blankly at the cards in Jinsu's hands, silently appreciating the genuine care of the only friend who was truly by his side. In that peaceful school, it was totally obvious that Jinsu desperately wanted recognition from the leader Hamon. And that's where we leave it with Mingyel walking away, as everyone keeps praising Hamon's huge luck. Get ready, because today you and I are going to see a cocky bully brag about a rare card he claims he just found outside. Seeing that shining iron warrior, everyone was dying of envy, wishing they had searched the schoolyard first for their own miracle. Minyel watched everything from a distance and suddenly called out loudly to Jinsu, startling his friend who was quietly relaxing in the classroom, causing him to spin around instantly. He walked over anxiously, asking about that special card Jinsu had promised to show him the day before, fearing he had lost it. Hearing this, Jinsu turned pale with fright, breaking into a cold sweat under the pressure. He waved his hands in a panic to calm him down, making up some silly excuse about giving the card away. Minyel was left completely speechless. The image of that card shining in Haymon's hands flashed in his mind, fueling his growing suspicions. Right then, Haymon suddenly marched over and threw his arm around Jinsu's shoulder, leaving Minjiel frozen as the harsh truth set in. The bully dragged Jinsu away for lunch with a laugh, forcing Minjiel to fake a smile as they walked off. The boy stood frozen, watching his two so-called friends walk away. A painful emptiness and a heavy sense of exclusion filled his chest. Now pay attention here, because that Iron Warrior card Haymon kept flexing just would not leave his mind. He was absolutely certain it belonged to Jinsu, since the scratch on the front matched his memory perfectly. Standing outside the empty school, Minjiel kept obsessing over how that treasure had vanished from his best friend's hands. Unable to ignore it, he blocked Haymon's path, demanding a straight answer before the school bell rang. He asked him directly where on earth he had actually gotten that warrior card. Though guilt flashed across his face, he stubbornly insisted he found it outside, clearly losing his patience at this point. Stepping up with a menacing glare, he got right in his face, asking if he was accusing him of something. Despite his fear, Minjiel tried to explain the matching scratch and Jinsu's obvious lie. Haymon's heavy hand suddenly gripped the boy's neck, leaving him completely paralyzed and unable to react. He screamed in his face, calling him a worthless loser for daring to doubt someone as powerful as him. The entire hallway shook as the bully roared that he would never tolerate anyone trying to make him look foolish. "Look at that panic!" The tyrant sneered even more mockingly, asking if he really wanted to pick a fight. Right at the worst possible second, Aaron showed up furiously, screaming at Haymon to let him go right now. She stepped in to defend him with fierce courage, forcing the bully to release his grip with a bitter grunt. Before walking away, he left one final warning: if he caught him snooping again, he would pay dearly. Under Aaron's worried gaze, he could only hang his head in shame and whisper that he was fine. Even though she insisted on dragging him to the clinic to get checked out, he stubbornly refused, glaring with empty eyes at the back of the guy who had just humiliated him. You and I both know he was not about to let this slide, swearing to get that card back at all costs. Haymon packed his things quickly and ran out upon hearing his friends calling him for a soccer game. From a hidden corner, Minjiel watched his every move with a mix of sheer panic and extreme caution. The moment he saw the locker left wide open, a bunch of papers and belongings spilled onto the floor as Haymon's laughter faded in the distance. And there, amidst the clutter, the Iron Warrior shone as proof of the theft. Minjiel knew only he could return the treasure to Jinsu. The boy grabbed the card quickly and shoved it into the bottom of his backpack. Adrenaline made his heart beat a mile a minute as he hurried away with sweat dripping down his face. He ran straight to his classroom, calling out Jinsu's name to deliver his precious treasure immediately. But the empty classroom showed him his friend was already gone. He comforted himself, deciding to wait just one more day. Watching the sunset completely blanket the school building, he promised to protect the card to give it to him the next day. At sunrise, Minjiel entered the classroom with his heart in his throat, desperately searching for his close friend's silhouette. Join me in the next video to see Haymon crying fake tears in class, turning this theft into absolute chaos. Come with me as we watch how those fake tears completely crushed our defenseless main character's heart. The teacher stood at the podium with a grim expression, ordering everyone to sit and close their eyes tight. He coldly announced that Haemon's most valuable card had mysteriously vanished into thin air, all while locking his eyes right on Minjol. He barked that stealing is unforgivable, promising a brutal punishment for whoever was behind it. His harsh command echoed loudly, forcing them to place their backpacks on the desks and put their hands up as he started searching. He warned that anyone hiding the stolen card should prepare for complete and total hell if they were caught. Then, without warning, the teacher stopped right in front of Mingale's desk, demanding to know why his hands weren't up yet. Drenched in a cold sweat of pure panic, Minjol completely froze to his core when the teacher announced that the search would begin with his very own backpack. Watch closely here, all hope completely dies as the teacher pulls the rare Iron Warrior card from his backpack, leaving everyone in utter shock. Holding up the stolen card, the teacher glared and demanded an immediate explanation for how it ended up in his possession. Minyel, drenched in sweat, stammered out that he didn't steal it, trying to explain his real intentions were totally different. In his mind, he knew that card actually belonged to Jin Soo, and he only took it to return it to his best friend. The teacher immediately spun around to Jin Soo to verify if Mingale's story was the truth or just a desperate lie. His best friend, sporting a bandage on his face, looked incredibly tense and sweaty under the teacher's suffocating gaze. Poor Minjiel's heart absolutely shattered the moment he heard Jin Soo coldly deny receiving any help from him. He delivered a brutal betrayal, claiming he gave the card to Haemon, framing Minjiel as the actual thief. Deeply disappointed, the teacher ordered Minjol to stay behind after school, marking the start of a dark phase of relentless bullying as his classmates violently threw his textbooks onto his desk. Haemon smirked, dangling the book in the air and taunting Minjiel to try and take it back if he dared. Waving the book around like a trophy, Haemon announced to the entire room that Minjiel was back to being a thief. I know what you're thinking, and yes, the abuse gets unbearable as the entire class starts chanting that he's a thief. Feeding off the chaos, Haemon barked orders at Jin Soo, telling him to throw the notebook over right away. He kept laughing, telling his cronies to keep playing, keep away, so Minjiel couldn't lay a single finger on his own stuff. Staring at his only friend Mingiel, begged Jin Soo to have some mercy and just give the textbook back. But he got nothing but an avoided gaze and a face dripping with guilt from a coward bowing to peer pressure. Finally, Jin Soo reeled back and hurled the book deep across the room, leaving Minjiel frozen in place as he watched his property sail through the air. Haemon praised his spineless act and tossed the book aside like complete trash, leaving together as their silhouettes slowly faded down the hall. Jin Soo barely mumbled a pathetic, useless apology before turning on his heel and running off. Staring down at his ruined notebook lying in a dirty puddle, Mingyil realized with heavy bitterness that there was absolutely nobody left for him to trust in this world. Completely isolated in the vast schoolyard, Minjiel whispered to himself that he had been cast aside by everyone. He painfully realized that Jin Soo, just to gain the bully's favor, was willing to throw him under the bus, leaving him absolutely no way to clear his name. The humiliation peaked when a classmate raised her hand to request a seat change, claiming she was terrified a dirty thief would steal her things. During the heavy, awkward silence, the teacher asked the class if anyone wanted to swap seats with Sumin. Immediately, Erin quietly grabbed her backpack and stood right up as the teacher instructed them to switch their desks. She flashed him a radiant, warm smile and offered a friendly hello, instantly melting the icy wall around his soul. Nodding shyly, poor Minjul was left completely lost as the teacher ordered everyone to turn to page 83. Noticing his empty desk, Erin leaned in close and offered to share her textbook so they could study together. And that's where we leave it. Is she his salvation? Let's find out together. All right, you and I are diving into an emotional story of second chances. Erin nods with determination while the boy asks tremblingly if she is not afraid that an outcast like him will steal something precious from her. Erin tilted her head, looking at Minjiel in confusion before softly asking why she should even believe those completely baseless rumors. She gently repeated that she knew he only wanted to return the card to Ginsu with zero bad intentions. Staring down at his textbook, Minjiel asked in a shaky voice if she really trusted him, getting a resounding yes. He froze in utter shock, his eyes wide open as he stammered, asking why on earth she decided to stand by him like this. Erin offered a small, mysterious smile, her gaze drifting off as if she were searching her memories for the perfect answer. Slowly, she began explaining the reason why she would always have absolute, unwavering faith in the friend beside her. Flashbacks hit, with the memory of a young Erin, staring right into his eyes, assuring him that he was not that kind of bad person at all. Those words were like a direct beam of light into his broken soul, leaving young Minjiel completely overwhelmed with emotion. That single faded sentence rescued him from the darkest abyss of despair, lighting up the lonely path he always walked alone. Back in the present, Minjiel smiled while thanking Erin for the coffee, quietly treasuring this peaceful moment with the girl he loved. Look at this. Erin is hiding her face under a cap. Blushing, she confessed she was actually the grateful one for stealing her dear friend's entire weekend afternoon like this. Smiling at her shyness, Minyel eagerly pulled out a huge stack of study notes and suggested starting with math, even though he admitted he was pretty lost on where to begin. But he surprisingly showed total confidence, mapping out a full plan from 10th grade basics to real practice exams, leaving Erin completely stunned. Erin decided to test his foundation by giving him a math function problem, and she nodded in approval when she saw he actually remembered some of his past lessons. Their iced coffee cups slowly melted on the wooden table, marking a quiet start to their study session. After years of separation, blank pages finally filled with ink to the steady, comforting rhythm of their pens, proving how hard they were trying to rebuild the beautiful bond they had once lost. While Erin focused intensely on solving the equations, Minyel rested his chin in his hand, admiring her beautiful, focused face with endless warmth. I know what you're thinking, and yes, he is chewing his pen, completely mesmerized by her every move. 30 minutes passed in peaceful silence as they studied, temporarily escaping the heavy baggage of their painful lives. Minyel glanced over at Erin, silently wondering if studying tough math after such a long break was exhausting for her. Erin sat quietly under the shadow of her cap, looking completely shut off from the noisy outside world. Minyel kept staring at her, feeling a rush of strange emotions just watching her work so hard on every single page. Erin looked up, her messy hair framing her face, but she could not hide the sadness in her eyes. Minyel could not resist whispering her name, startling Erin slightly as she did not expect him to speak right then. She blinked in curiosity shyly, asking if he wanted to share something important with her right now. Minyel blushed red and waved his hands in panic, stammering that he just got totally spaced out watching her study. Desperate to hide his embarrassment, Miguel quickly pushed the book toward Erin, asking her for help on an incredibly difficult math problem. She pulled the book closer, focusing with an intensity that held him spellbound as he watched her trace each line. He muttered that the question was a trick requiring her to solve multiple steps simultaneously. Leaning closer, he smiled warmly when he noticed adorable little kittens doodled on the margin of her notebook. Hiding beneath her cap, Erin sketched a graph and worked through calculus fueled by his supportive gaze. She answered with a brief nod and dived right back into that world of cold numbers. Watching her do this, Miguel paused, a painful doubt creeping in about her sudden changes from hiding in coffee shops to skipping school entirely. And trust me, it hurts to realize she is just trying to become completely invisible to the rest of the world. Come along with me as we dive into this story where Erin pulls down her hat to hide from those cold stares. Seeing her so focused makes Minjiel's heart skip a beat, as ghosts from his past suddenly rush back into his mind. He was completely shocked connecting the dots. From searching for hidden cafes to skipping classes, seeing this tiny girl take notes so diligently touched his heart deeply. Miguel wondered with deep sadness if she was simply trying to make herself invisible to the rest of the world. Ditching school and seeking empty spots, he painfully realized that Erin would do anything to disappear from society completely. Their study session finally ended on a scenic stone bridge. She thanked him for his help while Minjiel promised her that her talent still shined just as brightly as before. Minjiel flashed a bright smile as they walked together under the shade of the trees. His laughter seemed like an attempt to break that long, awkward silence. Passing by a crowded food stall, he gently asked if she wanted some hot, freshly made rice cakes. Erin froze, instantly panic, and anxiety rushed over her as she saw the cheerful crowd gathered outside the shop. She quickly shook her head and pulled her hat down to escape their eyes, making Minjiel ask with deep worry if she was truly all right. Now pay attention here, the atmosphere grew so tense that Erin just wanted to vanish to escape everyone staring. Even though her face burned with confusion, she insisted she would just eat at home and was fine leaving Minjiel standing there with deep worry in his eyes. Watching her rush away, Minjiel bitterly realized that her intense fear of crowds was far worse than he had ever imagined. His eyes grew dark as he thought about the painful isolation the poor girl was enduring day in and day out. Memories flashed back to Gina angrily asking if he had ever considered the cruel gossip they would face just walking together. That harsh warning from his former friend felt like cold water staying close to Erin would only bring him total disaster. He stayed silent, reflecting on the sad reality unfolding before him as he looked at the devastated expression on the young girl's face. He wondered if she kept her distance from others just to protect him from facing their anger directly. She gently turned her head to tell him he did not need to be so cautious, leaving Minjiel totally speechless. Suddenly, you probably think all hope is lost. But look at this sweet memory of a boy laughing and a swing under the sun. He whispered Erin's name as he remembered the shadow of that little girl who used to push his swing during childhood sunsets. Back in the present, Miguel surprised her by asking her to swing again beneath the brim of her hat. Her cheeks instantly blushed a soft, tender pink. She remained completely silent, making the whole situation feel extremely awkward. He took her silence as a yes, sensing that she truly wanted to experience that beautiful feeling once again. His gaze softened, filled with a deep and overwhelming empathy. As if silently promising to be her strongest support, Minjiel stepped closer and offered to push her gently. encouraging her to open up her heart to the world once more. She looked around in panic. She shyly reminded him people were nearby, but Minjiel quickly calmed her down by telling her to ignore them entirely. With eyes full of affection, he firmly assured her that nobody would ever bother judging what they were doing right now. Her eyes widened in absolute shock, feeling how his genuine kindness was starting to touch her soul, which had been locked away for so long. Mignel gently gripped the swing ropes, ready to fulfill his silent promise of bringing joy back to the girl he loved. He leaned in slightly to push her and gently asked if the speed was okay, receiving a soft murmur of agreement. The swing began to rise into the air, breaking the heavy tension and carrying away the fears resting on her tiny shoulders. As the gentle breeze swept through her hair, Erin closed her eyes to experience a sense of true freedom, thinking to herself how amazing the wind felt today. The swing climbed higher and higher, tracing gentle arcs in the quiet, empty playground, where you and I finally get to see these two souls connect. All right, let us look at how this starts. She is holding her hat tight against the wind, hiding a sea of emotions while Minjiel gets more and more excited. He flashes her a bright smile and warns her he is going to push harder, telling Erin she needs to hold on tight. The swing begins to soar, shattering the peaceful silence of that sunset park. Her gaze softens just a bit as she looks at her friend's sincere face, and slowly all her internal walls start to crumble down. Erin looks up at the endless sky with teary eyes, silently soaking in the freedom she had craved for so long. She grips the iron chains to avoid falling, feeling a massive vibration run through her entire body. High in the air, her cap slips right off her head, flying away in the wind, leaving her completely lost in a rare, happy memory. But realizing he pushed a bit too hard, Mignel desperately reaches out to stop the swing, but everything spirals out of control after that massive shove. He tries desperately to stop the swing. Now pay attention here because things get scary. The terrible crash against the ground terrifies Minjiel, and he completely pales, realizing something horrible just happened. Erin is on the ground crying in pain, while Minjiel can only scream her name, completely consumed by guilt and panic. Helping her sit on a stone step, he anxiously asks if she can stand, but she winces, holding her ankle. He keeps apologizing, over and over hating himself for getting carried away and causing her to fall like that, even though she insists she is fine. Seeing his panic, Erin smiles softly to calm him down, promising him that it does not hurt at all. Mignel's eyes go wide at that rare smile. It is the exact moment of peace he has been searching for. He realizes with shock that since their reunion, this is the very first time she looks genuinely happy. His expression softens, but guilt creeps in. How can he smile when he is the one who hurt her? To fix this, he jumps up and promises to find the nearest pharmacy to grab some medicine and water. He tells Erin to just rest there, promising to be right back, leaving her completely lost in thought. He hurries away, repeating his promise while Erin's vulnerable eyes follow his every step. Suddenly, a tiny trembling hand reaches out, grabbing the hem of Minjiel's shirt, as if she is holding onto the only ray of hope left in her life. I know what you're thinking right now. She is desperately begging him to stay because she cannot stand another second of that awful loneliness. Erin looks up with pleading eyes, whispering for him to just stay here instead of running to the store. Seeing her so vulnerable, Minjiel blushes and freezes completely, torn by a deep sadness in his chest. They sit together under the shade of the trees, lost in their own thoughts. Wrapped in a heavy silence, She tries to stand, insisting she can walk while he follows her anxiously. The girl spins around playfully just to prove she can take solid steps. But Minjiel still doubts she is fine. Suddenly, Aaron takes off running, leaving him frozen as she disappears into the sunset until she suddenly collapses with a painful gasp, forcing Minjiel to rush over, scolding her for not listening and resting like he asked. Looking up at the darkening sky, Minjiel figures she must be starving after such a chaotic afternoon, watching her silently from behind. He has no idea how to handle her hunger rubbing his forehead in absolute exhaustion. He feels totally helpless facing the irony of their situation. He calls out her name as she sits there, a wave of sadness washing over him. So he squats down, telling her to climb on his back so they can leave. She looks up with melancholic eyes, whispering a gentle reminder that it is already too late. Seeing her doubt, Minjiel firmly promises to get her back home safe and sound before night falls. And that is where we leave things today, with her classmates teasing her about her ideal guy. Hearing that sudden question, young Miel flinched, his face instantly showing deep anxiety and total confusion. Let's watch together as he cleans the window without breathing, secretly listening to them, pressuring Aaron to reveal her secret. Minjiel's hands stopped dead when he heard her friends ask if there was anyone she liked at school. While Aaron stared into the distance, thinking, Minjiel's heart began to race violently from pure anxiety. Aaron's bright smile as she denied liking anyone left poor Minjae feeling completely crushed and disappointed. Her friends teased her about her vague ideal type, pressuring her to admit if she cared about looks. Suddenly, Aaron paused as if remembering something big, celebrating happily when she finally found the perfect answer. Ninjol's eyes widened in total shock, silently watching every single tiny gesture on his friend's face. Aaron excitedly clapped her hands together and fantasized about a strong, reliable guy who would always be ready to protect her from any danger. Minjiel stared down at his thin arms, feeling a deep wave of insecurity about being weak his entire life. Pay close attention as he stares into the mirror, wishing he could be the strong guy she is waiting for. Determined to change his weak self, he pushed his body to the limit to try some push-ups. But his body shook instantly and he collapsed exhausted. Lying on the bed in complete despair, Mingyel told himself he was absolutely hopeless for being so weak. His anxiety spiraled even more when he realized he did not have any height advantage either. Just as the school loudspeaker announced that the entire class had to start their group workout, his classmate turned around to give him a mocking look, forcing Minjol to grit his teeth and endure the shame. Out in the noisy schoolyard, the student pairs started doing the exercise where they lift each other up. Suddenly, Miel was hoisted high into the air, kicking his legs in panic as he lost all footing. The other guy lifted Miel up while laughing rudely, mocking him for being as light as a feather. Terrified Ninjol could only beg him to put him down while everyone laughed, until thankfully the teacher blew his whistle, strictly ordering everyone to stop messing around, while Mingyel secretly envied the incredible strength of Baek Haemon. He clenched his teeth, swallowing his pride as someone else flexed their power in front of Aaron, his absolute crush. Later that evening, a stream of cool water soaked into the tree roots in a very quiet corner of the school campus. Mingyel held the watering can alone, trying to comfort himself by accepting that embarrassing himself was just normal now. But wait, just as he freezes up, Aaron suddenly appears out of nowhere and asks him if that was true. He had not gone home yet, so Ninjel blushed and clumsily explained it was his turn to water the plants, slightly surprising Aaron. She leaned in closer, tilting her head to curiously study her friend, who was desperately trying to hide his shyness. Seeing Miel breaking a cold sweat and looking tense, Aaron asked him with deep concern if he felt sick. Shyly, he suggested they water them together, and she instantly agreed, super excited to share this simple chore with him. To break the ice, Minjul kept watering in silence while Aaron held her breath, asking if she was doing it right, earning a sweet compliment. Noticing that Aaron was worried about being a burden, Minjul quickly assured her that she was actually helping him out immensely. Suddenly, Aaron leaned in close and whispered that he was actually much stronger than he looked on the outside. The compliment made his face turn bright red, while she admired the manly way he carried those heavy flower pots. Fascinated by his hidden physical power, Aaron came up with the fun idea to recreate that exercise from this morning. She eagerly proposed that he try lifting her into the air just like those other classmate couples had done earlier. Even though Mingyil hesitated, Aaron firmly insisted that he should not apologize even if she ended up hitting the dirt. With their hands tightly locked together, Minjol held his breath to ask if she was truly ready for this huge challenge. Face red from nervousness and pure embarrassment, he poured every single ounce of his strength into lifting her up. Minyel counted out loud and lifted her up, making Aaron gasp in utter shock at his surprising strength. What happened next is a blur, but trust me, you and I will remember this beautiful moment for a long time. Get ready, because you and I are about to witness the sweetest, most heart-fluttering moment between these two. Walking under the dim streetlights wrapped in the quiet night, she softly called out to Mingyil to share her deepest thoughts. She shyly asked if she was too heavy for him, but he immediately shook his head, gently teasing that she needed to eat a lot more. Worrying about her thin shirt, he softly asked if the chilly night breeze was making her cold. She looked away, whispering she was fine, while carefully checking if he was doing okay too. She tightened her grip on his shoulders, while he silently realized he didn't feel cold at all. Suddenly, we flash back 5 minutes earlier when the tension between them was still incredibly awkward. Without hesitation, he knelt down and firmly insisted on carrying her piggyback after her painful fall. This chivalrous offer caught her completely off guard, her eyes widening at how protective her friend was being. She tried forcing herself up, claiming she was totally fine and could walk perfectly well on her own. Limping forward, she worried about the lost time, terrified they would end up incredibly late at this rate and miss the final bus. Watching her struggle from behind, he called her name, making her stop in total confusion. "Now pay attention here." He hesitantly asks if she is really rejecting his piggyback, purely because she's terrified that the judging eyes of others will look directly down on them. Getting super flustered, she avoided his gaze, whispering that things weren't at all what he was thinking. Her face showed deep sadness and hidden scars, things too painful to explain to her worried friend. She feared that if other students saw them so close, it would only bring more trouble to her complicated life. His eyes instantly turned incredibly intense, silently swearing he would never let that painful past repeat itself again. Out of nowhere, he told her to freeze, leaving her completely stunned as she watched his every move. Without warning, he scooped her right up, making her gasp in shock at such a sudden move. He easily adjusted her on his back, teasing that she was light as a feather, not heavy like she feared. "I know what you're thinking. This is so sweet and..." Yeah, he says he now has reasons to protect her. He walked on, making it clear he couldn't care less about rumors, and he wasn't tired at all, carrying her on his broad shoulders. He wanted to show the entire world how proud he was to walk by her side, hiding nothing. Resting her head gently on his shoulder, she told him not to overexert himself, thanking him from her heart. Slightly embarrassed, she held on tighter, admitting that his tall height was actually making her a bit dizzy. Just as the mood softened, the sudden roar of an engine startled them, drawing their eyes to the road. The bus drove right past without stopping, vanishing into the dark mountains, leaving him panicked, realizing that was indeed the final ride. Holding his breath, he checked his phone, only to bitterly confirm that their last hope had vanished into the lonely night. They sat down to figure out a plan as he worriedly asked if her place was too far away. Looking at the empty road ahead, he realized they had absolutely no other options since all the transit had shut down. Checking her address, he commanded her to get back on his shoulders so he could carry her home. Even though she insisted on walking, he sternly warned her about how dangerous this pitch-black road really was without lights. She hung her head, feeling incredibly guilty, secretly believing she couldn't let him suffer for an entire hour. He, however, stared back with pure determination, blaming himself for her injury and taking complete responsibility for protecting her no matter what. Suddenly, he reached out and gently held Erin's hand as a silent, firm promise in the dark. Noticing her hesitation, his voice softened as he offered an alternative so they could both move forward. He asked her to hold his hand tightly, using him for support in case she ended up tripping. That incredibly sweet gesture made her entire face turn bright red from pure shyness. And that's where we leave them, hearts racing as they walk hand in hand through the night. Get ready, because today we are watching Erin finally let Minjiel lead her down this lonely path. Under the dim moonlight, their footsteps crunch on the asphalt, matching the racing beats of their hearts. They lock their hands together tightly, stepping forward into the shadows of the dense forest surrounding them. Minjiel's cheeks instantly flush red as he realizes just how close he is to the girl he secretly loved. Holding on to each other tightly, that warm touch instantly calms the quiet storm raging inside both of their souls. He stares up at the sky, amazed by the vast, deep darkness wrapping all around them. No cars drive down this deserted road, leaving a silence so heavy their footsteps echo in the night. He gulps nervously, realizing his palms are sweating, and terrified she might notice how flustered he actually is. To break the heavy tension, Erin decides to speak up softly, admitting it is her first time walking this path she only ever watched from her window. He nostalgically recalls those old bus rides, smiling, because she clearly remembers him getting off exactly 3 stops later. Now pay attention here because he curiously asks if they were already close back in middle school. She shakes her head, revealing their bond started in elementary school, and asking if that does not count as close. He waves his hands in embarrassment, since he always thought that connection was completely one-sided. Erin's face turns a soft shade of pink as she confesses her feelings started changing back in middle school. Suddenly she stumbles and almost falls, but quickly recovers, claiming she just got tripped up by her own words. He catches her instantly worried about the stumble while she laughs it off and promises she is totally fine. Looking down at the uneven ground, he notices how neglected this path is and warns her they must tread very carefully. Minjiel quickly turns on his phone flashlight to light their way, but she stops him, worried they will run out of battery in the middle of this dark night. He insists he does not care about being cut off, hesitating before sharing something much deeper with her. She squeezes his hand, gently confessing she actually prefers walking like this, holding on to each other. He completely freezes eyes wide and face burning bright red after hearing a confession like that. He speeds up to hide his intense shyness, stammering that his eyes have already adjusted and they really should save the battery. Suddenly he trips, and honestly, we are all panicking just like Aaron when she asks if he is okay. He suggests they stop to take a quick break on a large rock before they keep going. With their hands still locked, she lets out a soft gasp as she looks up toward the sky. A blanket of endless stars shines bright like an unexpected gift for these two souls connecting tonight. She asks if he ever saw anything this beautiful living in Bright Soul, but he just shakes his head. She stares thoughtfully at their hands, whispering that the darker the night, the brighter the stars will shine. Seeing her sad look, he finally dares to ask about her old school Utio, which was surrounded by scandals and rumors. She sighs softly, gently teasing him for taking so many weeks to ask after 5 long years of separation. He scratches his head, apologizing for being too nosy, but she eases his mind with a warm smile. She looks down, thoughtfully whispering that she actually experienced some truly wonderful moments in that place too, gazing up at that bright starry sky. She fondly remembers her good friends and all the unforgettable memories she made back then. He listens in absolute silence, feeling a surge of tenderness as he looks at his friend's lonely back. Smiling genuinely at the endless sky, he declares his ultimate goal is to attend university right alongside her. You and I both know how deeply touching it is when someone considers a future with you as their ultimate dream. All in the quiet stillness of the night, come along with me to see how Minjel expresses his pure joy to finally be by her side. Erin turns her back in silence, shoulders trembling slightly as if trying to hold back a flood of raw emotion. Staring up at the distant Milky Way, he whispers that this entire reality feels incredibly strange and unreal to him. Erin lowers her head in utter helplessness, a tight knot in her throat, wondering why this is happening. Why Minjiel could still be so kind and forgive her. Suddenly, those questions stir up the deepest feelings he kept hidden for years. That was the exact question he wanted to ask his beloved childhood friend after all this time. A vision of little Erin from their childhood days. With her sweet angelic smile and endless patience rushes back with absolute clarity to his mind. He secretly wonders if her past reasons and true feelings ever matched. Their hands brush against the cold stone, bridging their hearts. Only one clear answer remains in Mingyel's mind, and he decides right then to stop running away. Now pay close attention, because in this heavy silence, he gathers the courage to confess he likes her, freezing the air entirely. Erin completely freezes. Her eyes widen in pure shock, and a deep blush rushes across her cheeks from the emotional blow. Mingyel is utterly terrified too, his chest heaving as he realizes just how incredibly direct he has suddenly been. Panic sets in. He recoils completely, horrified by the realization that he just confessed his love so openly. Cold sweat breaks across Mingyel's face, yet her lingering doubt only fuels his deep, burning desire to explain everything. Staring silently at Erin's back, he realizes deep down that this is the one question he wanted to ask his entire life. Memories of young Erin's smile return instantly, leaving him wondering why she chose to treat him so warmly in the past. Ninjali slowly turns around, silently thinking that her past motives are completely different from his feelings today. As their hands touch, revealing a painful distance between their souls. Right then, he summons every bit of courage to speak, because only one overwhelming feeling remains trapped inside his chest. I know what you're thinking, but Miel actually confesses right here, saying he likes her, freezing the air around them. Erin freezes, instantly, her eyes widening in total disbelief as a heavy blush stains her face from the sweet confession. Mining panics, breaking into a cold sweat, as he realizes he might have ruined everything by blurting out his deepest secret. Erin ducks her head, letting her dark hair veil her face as she softly asks why he fell for her. Erin turns away shyly, whispering to ask why he suddenly let go of her hand. Mingyel blushes furiously and ducks his head in sheer embarrassment, confessing that his hands were sweating way too much from nerves. Erin giggles softly, reaching out to grasp his hand, while playfully teasing him to touch hers, so he can see she is trembling too. Their fingers interlock again. A warm wave washes over them, melting away every ounce of awkwardness into the quiet night air. Erin gently squeezes Miel's fingers, reassuring him that her own hands are shaking and sweating just as much as his. Locking eyes with him, her face still burning, she whispers that all of his secret fears were completely real. In the quiet stillness, Erin cherishes the sweet, comforting warmth radiating from Mingyel's steady hand. But then she notices his fingers turning ice cold, making her ask in deep worry what is wrong. Forcing Mingyel to shyly admit he is shivering from the cold, he quickly tries to offer her his coat. But Erin stops his sweet gesture. Erin lowers her head as her hair falls over her eyes, whispering that what she truly wants is much more than a coat. Erin ducks her head deeply, flustered. And holding Miol's hands tight, she whispers that if they just hold each other close like this, their own body heat will be more than enough to beat the freezing cold of this dark night. And trust me, that left Mingyal completely frozen by the sheer intensity of it.